Thanks for staying with us for the news. In our first story, a professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Godfred Bokpin, says this week will prove critical to Ghana's chances of securing the $3 billion arrangement with the International Monetary Fund. He, however, fears the current state of affairs will allow some of the creditors to meddle in the affairs of the country. He spoke to Evans Mensah on Newsnight yesterday.
Yeah, so it has been suggested, and I agree largely, that this week will prove to be very critical for Ghana in terms of our resolve to get IMF-supported program. And the reason this week is critical is simply because of the IMF World Bank joint spring meeting. Because there you are going to have all the partners, the country representatives, the finance ministers, and the central bank governors would all converge during the spring meeting. And therefore, instead of traveling to individual member countries to go and be begging or calling others to beg on your behalf, now everybody is at one place. And thankfully, some kind of a meeting has been arranged. But what is a bit concerning for me is that it has taken us more than 2 months to realize that China wasn't going to play along with Paris Club creditors. And the reason it's coming to us as a surprise is that we should have known this long ago. And I am sure the West knew this long ago. And Ghana should have known this long ago, that in principle, the way China conducts its activities in Africa and other countries is quite different. And also the global geopolitics, the geoeconomic fragmentation, and all of that is going to play out in how we are able to get China to play along. Don't forget that China wants to be recognized as a big player and wants to be dealt on its own terms. Remember that given that whoever gives you money controls and directs how your affairs are managed. And I agree largely with Georgie when you were saying that even for the Paris Club creditors, if they are going to give us debt relief.
Now, in our next story, we get into politics, and the National Democratic Congress has petitioned the police to arrest and prosecute Minister of Food and Agriculture, Brian Achampong. The NDC says recent comments by Mr. Achampong at Mpraeso that the governing New Patriotic Party will never hand over power to the National Democratic Congress were in bad taste and had the potential of escalating political chaos in the country.
So today, we were at the CID quarters to present to the CID boss a petition calling on the CID boss to arrest, investigate, and prosecute the Minister for Agric, Brian Achampong, for the unsavory comments that he made during the Easter break. You are aware that he's on viral video to have said that the MPP, will not hand over power to the NDC, come what may. And as lawyers, we are of the view that this comment or comments on that day border on one, national security, and two, an affront to the Constitution. As lawyers, we think that the police administration must be interested in this matter because as stakeholders in this democratic dispensation, not sit by for just one person to pass comments that will bring unrest in this country. So that's why we are here today, and we've submitted the petition to the CID boss. We had a copy for the IGP, and we thought we could have met him.
Before you go to the IGP, what did the CID boss tell you?
The CID boss indicated to us his appreciation of what we have done, and she was of the view that she would take the necessary steps, having received the petition. But once we were also going to serve the IGP, she will wait till we
confirm to you whether they saw that viral video of Brian Achampong.
The CID boss did not say much. What he indicated to us was that he's happy we have brought the petition and they will work on it. As to whether she has seen or the police has seen it, that didn't come up. But in my submission, I said that we have attached a video in a pen drive, and that if she hasn't seen it, this is an opportunity for her to now see it. And so what we are doing is not derogating from that. What we are doing is furthering what the police has already started doing. And so we are confident that having started this, the police administration by themselves, clamping down on such speech, they would deal with this matter as well.
And that was the Director of Legal Affairs of the NDC, Abraham Amaliba, making that presentation of a petition to the Ghana Police. Meanwhile, national organizer of the New Patriotic Party, Henry Nanabuachi, says they have also concluded a petition to be presented to the Inspector General of Police for the arrest of former President John Dramani Mahama and the chairman of the NDC, Johnson Esiedun Ketia, for comments they made in the past that have the tendency of disrupting the peaceful coexistence of the country.
The MPP, we have also just finalized a petition which we intend to forward to the police CID for the arrest, investigation, and prosecution of the former president, John Dramani Mahama, for comments he made which undermines the stability and peace, saying that the NDC was born out of a revolution. NDC is a violent party. When it comes to unleashing violence, they are number one. They are unmatched. The 2024 election is going to be boot for boot, and then also do or die affair. The national chairman of the NDC, Mr. Esiedun Ketia, is also in our petition. And then we are also calling for his arrest, investigation, and prosecution. What we have also said is that recently when he won and when he was addressing his party faithfuls, what he said was that they are going to do anything possible to win the elections, even if they have to sacrifice lives. He also said that. So we have also finalized the petition, and then we are just proceeding to the CID any time from now, and we are calling for the arrest of these two persons, former President Mahama and then Mr. Johnson Esiedun Ketia. We are asking the police to also investigate them, also prosecute them for some of these comments they made.
Now, in our next story, the head of the Center for Settlement Studies at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Professor Define Ahaji, is calling for a review of Ghana's affordable housing scheme. He believes the current policy excludes the vulnerable and the needy. Professor Ahaji was speaking at his professional inaugural lecture in Kumasi.
We are leaving out what we call the ambulance bracket, and you know what it means to be in the ambulance. And then the safety net. And so it means that our affordability issues must be redefined and looked at again. And I think this is something that we call for serious public discourse. Recently, we did a study in Kumasi, Asawasi, Atonsu, and Ija, and it shows that based on their current income, their rent-to-income ratio was around 10%. So many of the people who, sorry to say, live in the areas that we declare substandard pay about 10% of their income on housing because that is based on their income. That's why they choose to live in such situations. We try to compare that by moving them to a standard house based on the income and realize that if we are to use the rent-to-income, it will go past 50%. And based on our benchmark, the benchmark says that your rent income should not exceed 30%. So what it means is that many of all those people actually cannot fend for themselves when it comes to housing and will need some form of support. And that is why we have to properly define the issue of affordability so that it targets those who really need it and not those who can already afford or live in what the Americans will say overhoused houses. The person is already overhoused and then he takes the houses again.
From affordable housing, we get to our final story now. And the Bono East Department of Agriculture has held a mini trade fair in the Nkranza South municipality with the objective of building business partnerships and market linkages to make agriculture an effective and profitable venture. Regional Director Cecilia Kejajaman says the fair will offer actors in the agri value chain a platform to showcase their products to buyers across the country to help reduce post-harvest losses. Anna Sabit has more in this report.
Speaking at the 2023 Regional Business Partnerships and Market Linkages platform organized by the Bono East Regional Department of Agriculture as part of its planned activities to promote agri-businesses within the region, Regional Director of Agriculture, Mrs. Cecilia Keja, underscored the relevance of the forum, which was held under the theme Business Linkages, Promoting Markets and Partnerships in Agriculture.
You know, we launched it about 2 years ago, and we've been passionate about it. And it is business partnership or market linkages. Yes. So, and what are we talking about? We are talking about the need to quickly sell our foodstuff. I mean our farmers. Yes. And therefore, this business linkage or business market linkage and business partnership has become very, very, very necessary.
She asserted that the move would, amongst other things, bring together key stakeholders to help assist farmers in their quest to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, which aims at reducing poverty.
As a country, we have our SDGs to meet, and as part of the SDG goals, there's the need to reduce poverty. There's also the need for sustainable food availability. We normally say food security. And therefore, at this stage, this time, we have linked people along the value chain. We have our farmers here, we have our aggregators here, we have our people who are involved in big supplies. We have them here, we have marketers here, we have transporters, we have all the people along the value chain available. So the ultimate goal is for us to assist our farmers quickly and immediately sell their produce, and also to be able to meet the SDG goals for poverty reduction and food security.
She also called on investors in need of various food commodities in large quantities to communicate with the Regional Agric Office in order to be linked to the right suppliers scattered across the region.
As you know, we always pride ourselves as the food basket of the nation. And when the information gets to us, we have our various market linkage platforms. We'll have the discussion on such platforms. And people who are in need of large quantities, we don't care the quantity of maize, we don't care about the quantity of rice, beans, whatever. We are ready to supply. We have our FBOs, very vibrant FBOs who are hardworking and who really can supply the quantities they need.
Some of the participants drawn from the Nkranza North and South districts had the opportunities to brief officials and the public on their products and services, as well as the various challenges hindering their agricultural trade. Isaac Brobe and his team came up with this cashew machine to help ease the work of cashew farmers across the area.
Machine, a cashew machine, a cashew. Occasionally, a queer is a bread or cashew team. Cashew, a tibuasia, or what is our one? You say the part of better wine. What is our one? Now, sparking machine the woman at a table, like a brain to work.
They lament the high cost of materials in the market and appeal for government's intervention.
See, as we hear machine, say, it is a caron get 170 million hours anchor. Call never serious and one day. Yes, I get to it. About the soya senior, course a bit my buffer.
Reporting for JoyNews, Anas Sabit, Nkranza.
And that's the note on which we cap off the news. But stay with us. The news review is up next. Thank you for staying with us for the news review. We'll be joined shortly by Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, a political scientist and the director for the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. But kind courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic were able to bring you this news review. Now, what are they offering you? Apart from ensuring that we can bring this news review to you, they are also granting you free prostate screening if you're a man, free female fertility screening as well if you're a woman. And so here is where you can find them all across the country. Here in Accra, they can be found at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronomabwe behind the Angel Educational Complex. In Takrade, Anaji Estates, in Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama Enzema. Now, I'm sure you'd like to pick up your phone and give them a buzz to find out what other packages they have lined up for you. The numbers to call 0244 867 068 0244 867 068. Alternatively, you could call 0274 234 321. 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. We're grateful that you took the time to join us. And this morning, as we get into the news review, we'll be looking at a number of major stories in the papers. But those two big stories we're going to be looking at, I'd like to know what your reflections are on them, even as we start this conversation from here. The IMF's projections that our economy is going to grow by 1.2 percentage points less than what was projected. 2.8% was what was projected by the IMF for 2023. Now it's been revised to 1.6%. That is only going to mean a further tightening of our financial space, our economic space. What do you think that means? However, the point to take stock of is that the growth projections for our country in terms of the economy for 2024, the coming year, is projected to hit 2.9%. Here's the area of interest. In electoral years, with the electoral cycle, when it comes up, there's a lot of overspending. Even now that we have an IMF program, the tendency is still there. Whether we'll be able to manage things at the macro and microeconomic level is another thing altogether. But especially if you have any experience with faulty traffic lights, traffic signals, wherever you are, you could just shoot us a message this morning. Starting from now, I'll note all of them. And as we get into that second belt of the conversation, we'll bring that to bear. But as we await Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, who has now actually joined us. Doc, good morning. Welcome on the AM show.
How are you, my brother?
I am very well. I'm very well. I hope you are too.
I'm okay. But for starters, you did mention about 40 traffic lights.
Yes.
I must say that I have not gone to the Accra City campus for some time now because they are writing exam. But there's one which is near the Holy Spirit Cathedral. I don't know the state of affairs now, but part of it doesn't work, especially when you are driving from the Electoral Commission and you're trying to turn left onto the street that leads you to Tigo and City Campus. The left one doesn't work. You have to use your own discretion and drive. Can you imagine that? And it's been there since time immemorial.
And I will corroborate what you're saying because I used that stretch maybe a month or a little over a month ago, and that was the situation. I also experienced it. So what you're saying is the reality. Hopefully we'll be able to bring to bear some change as we get into these all-important conversations this morning on the AM show. But let's get into the papers now. And should I forget, the Daily Guide newspaper captures it, so I guess we'll get into that. The Brian Champon saga. You shared your thoughts with me yesterday, and today there's a new development. We'll be getting into what the NDC has said, what the MPP is saying, and what do you think the way forward is in terms of maybe political strategy. But the Daily Graphic, don't create tension in country, Peace Council to party political actors. And the National Peace Council has cautioned political leaders to be mindful of comments they make in the public, which have the tendency of creating tension and affecting the peace of the country. Quote, let's be careful with what we say and how we say it to ensure that it does not bring instability and unnecessary tension into the country. The chairman of the National Peace Council, Reverend Dr. Ernest Edudjemfi, said in an exclusive interview with the Daily Graphic. Now, the interview was in the context of how to maintain and deepen the prevailing peace as the country approaches political electioneering season, with the two biggest parties, the New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress, preparing to elect their flag bearers. Now, Reverend Edudjemfi, who is also the executive president of the Ghana Baptist Convention and chancellor of the Ghana Baptist University College, disclosed that his outfit had received several footages of speeches from political actors, especially from the two main parties, threatening violence, which he noted was not in the best interest of the country and therefore had to be condemned by all to secure the country's peace and stability. I was talking about some of those later developments. You would see on the front page of the Daily Guide, Brian Achampong Brouhaha, arrest Mahama, NPP replies NDC. So the latest dynamics, Abraham Amaliba, head of legal affairs with the NDC, presented a petition yesterday to the head of the CID that Brian Achampong had to be arrested. That was the bottom line. In response, the MPP has said, then former President Mahama, together with the current chairman of the party, formerly the General Secretary, Johnson Esiedun Ketia, ought to be arrested as well for comments they have made in the past. I'm sure some would then stretch it and say, well, how about the current president and what he said, or die be die? Some would say he apologized for it, and someone else hasn't apologized for his or her utterances. But this merry-go-round, this political merry-go-round, how do you see it ending? I've noticed something. Our political parties never accept blame. They never accept culpability. It's all about, oh, but he also did it. Oh, but she did it. And then the reaction was this way. Oh, but how about now? Why should the reaction be this way? I don't know what it bodes, but in one of the stories we took today, it is clear that if we continue on this trajectory, it can only result in turmoil for our country. What's your take, Doc?
Yes. If you look at this problem, it has persisted, except that we as a state, we have not been serious about it. It is not only this year. You know, time and again, we experience these things. And the state, after election, we go to sleep. I recall the last election, some of us made suggestions as to the way forward to this problem. And I suggested that the way forward is get all the political parties together, they sign something that binds all of them, and then you want to make sure that whoever crosses the line, we all campaign against that individual. If it's a parliamentary candidate, we campaign against the person, and that don't vote for this person because he's crossed the line. If it's a presidential candidate, we do the same. We have not been punishing them enough. We always
that sounds like a council, like today, the young people will say that's a council culture that you're fostering. In other words, counsel these people. Don't give them any, it would mean, for example, if these people do things that we don't want, don't even engage them as media. Don't give them credibility and all of that. That's what you're suggesting.
So. Right. Exactly so. But we as a society, we have slept on our rights. We don't know what to do with our rights. We have to punish them so that they will stay away. Once we get somebody, all right, and then use him as a scapegoat, you realize that everybody will stay serious. But for now, if we don't do that, all that it can be is a talk shop. We discuss the issue, is a threat to the society, is this, is that, and at the end of the day, we go to sleep. More so, when we are getting close to election, you are likely to have some of these things coming up. But what you do is what you put on paper and you let it be a binding document. Then you enforce it rigidly. Then you are in business.
Doc, we've got to the point where, and some have suggested, we are in dire need of a third force to bring some sanity into our system, because there was a monopoly at a point in the Fourth Republic. Then there came a duopoly, what we have currently. And some are saying that if we don't have other intermediary forces, these two political parties, the MPP and the NDC, could sink the ship of our country through their utterances, through their actions. Look at what is happening with the Electoral Commission. What has happened in the past, and what is happening now. You don't need to have a crystal ball. You don't need to be a soothsayer. Look, I engaged, even yesterday, I think, when I spoke to, I don't know whether I brought it up, Ras Mubarak, former Kumbungu MP. It is clear that should the NDC recover power, the Electoral Commission, there's going to be a shake-up there. It is clear from what they have said, many individuals, prominent individuals in the party, procurement breaches, they say that was what was used to oust Charlotte Osei, and Jean Mensa has engaged in saying. And so we'll go through the same processes. What do you think that would mean for our democracy? Look at the latest appointments to the Electoral Commission. I find all of these incredibly troubling. And I look at it this way. If we don't get some sanity into these political parties, we're going to have a big problem on our hands. I don't know how else we can resolve this, and how else we can get these two political parties that always want to be right to see that, no, at this point, I am in error. I have found some of the justifications of the current situation, the utterances by Brian Achampong, laughable. I have also found some of the justifications of utterances from the other side, the NDC, laughable. When?
Ben, I can share your pain. I'm sharing in your pain. It is a pain that we all share. And the earlier we did something about it, the better. What we have to do is, one, build strong institutions. Our institutions are not strong. When I say institutions, what do I mean? I'm talking about the rules, the regulations, and the norms. We have not enforced them. They are there, but we have not enforced them, allowed them to work. All right? Where we need changes, we should be quick to change those institutions and let it reflect the changing circumstances of the time. Where people cross the line, like the appointment you are talking about in terms of the EC appointment, where you have politically exposed people going to occupy that office, there should be a way to deal with it quickly without having problems. But having said this, on your first question, that are we likely to have a third force, which you think that could be the savior, I'm afraid you may even have a third force, and it can be worse if we are not ready to build institutions that will stand the test of time and work. But looking at the third force itself, you are not likely to have a third force in the next 10, 20, or even 30 years to come. Why am I saying that? We have a two-party system, and every country where there is a two-party system, it means that there are so many parties in the state, only two have what it takes to win power and form the next government. If you look at what we have now, only two, NDC MPP, can win power and form the next government.
What if the smaller parties, they've struggled to do that, but what if the smaller parties, especially those that lean towards the CPP and Kromaist agenda, what if they came together? Would that possibly stand a chance?
They can make it. I did the research with our team. I have a team of friends. We did work from 1992 up to 2020. And all those parties, I'm talking about all the smaller parties, minus NDC MPP, put together, their average performance have not gone beyond 4% during election. So what are we talking about here? You need to cross the 50% threshold in order to win presidential election. And they put all together, their strength can go beyond 4%. So it tells you that the third force is a dream, perhaps a mirage.
Is it not because they are separate entities that are not able to rally around one agenda, one leader? Is that not the case?
It is not the case. The case is that if you look at where two-party systems are entrenched, a third force becomes difficult to come to the fore. We started from UGCC, CPP, two-party. Then we crossed to independence. CPP struggle with UP. All right. Then we go to the Fourth Republic, where the CPP fizzled out, and we were replaced by NDC, which has their roots from the CPP. So now it's NDC, NPP. And if you look at the NDC, most of the guys who are in there believe in the CPP tradition. They are there. So obviously the CPP will not gain root at all. There are a lot of people who are in the CPP that if given opportunity to join any party, they will not join NPP. They will rather join the CPP because they feel that that's their home. And within the CPP, I can tell you that a little work that we do, we realize that there are people who are in there and they are not ready to support even the CPP to gain roots and the rest of them. It's been difficult for them. Their leaders, they've tried it many times. PNC, CPP, NIP, and the rest of NCP, talk about all of them. But because of the deep-rooted situation that we have within the political system, that is from the MPP and CPP, UP and then Rawlings tradition, two-party state has come to exist. And if we don't take care, it can last for a very long time. We have seen examples in African countries such as Botswana Democratic Party. They ruled from independence up to now, that a few elections that they've lost. If you look at India, they rule over 50 years. If you look at countries, sometimes 56 years, 60, and the rest of them, two-party states. Look at even America, Republican, Democrat, they've ruled forever. Look at Labour and Conservative in Britain, they rule forever. All right, so a two-party tradition is very difficult to break. All right. Otherwise, then you are getting into a multi-party system where you end up in a coalition government that exists in Israel, Belgium, Germany, and the rest of them.
Let's get into some other stories now. There's a particular story I'm looking for, something from Dr. Sam Jonah. It's the Daily Graphic advertises that it's on page 13, but the story is actually on page 20. I'll get into that and one or two more stories, and then we can wrap with the Daily Graphic. So, statesman, Sir Sam Essen Jonah, has urged policymakers to be more sensitive to the feelings and needs of the citizens as they initiate measures to navigate the difficult path of economic restructuring. He said this while addressing the challenges. While addressing the challenges required sacrifices from everybody, the revival process had to be empathetic, such that it did not exacerbate the difficulties facing citizens. Now, this is something that he said. I don't know why the Daily Graphic is rehashing this, because we've spoken about it, I think, as far as a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, but still pertinent, as he says that this is not the time for blame game. We need to focus on a constructive spirit to get us out of the mess we find ourselves in. So he's talking about the fact that we should give a human face to getting out of the economic doldrums, but at the same time, we shouldn't play the blame game, and we did find ourselves in a big mess, and we needed focus, a constructive spirit to get there. But here's something else. Here is why I even bothered to go into that story. Constructive spirit. I remember when the former president, Mahama, was in power, and we were bashing him, nailing him. Some of those who are in power now were our friends. They liked what we were doing. They liked the fact that we were being journalists and holding the feet of leaders to the fire of accountability. Today, the shoe is on the reverse foot, and when you say anything, he's not being constructive. I have noticed that in other parts of the world, even when the likes of Emmanuel Macron go as far as triggering certain articles against the will of maybe the masses of the people, the demonstrations still ongoing and all of that, there are ways of doing things. I don't know what it is with our politicians, but I think they lack that finesse. They are too raw, too brutal. I'll go back to the political science you taught all of us. Thomas Hobbes. Life can be brutal, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. You know, the Hobbesian kind of situation. Our leaders, politically speaking, seem to be there. So constructiveness is lost on them.
It is a problem. One, because our politicians don't want to accommodate dissenting views. They don't want that. All that they want is glory. You praise them, all right, they are happy. But dissent is part of what? The political calculation. You need it all the time. They help you to sit well. They help you to navigate your way. And then it can be very painful, but it doesn't matter. You need to have a big stomach to have that and bring it on board. All right. That tutorial, the political actors, they need that. They need a lot of political tutorial to be able to, navigate the business of government very well. Come to look at what Sir Jonah said. We should engage in constructive, programs and
constructive criticism.
That expression, I find a problem with it. What is constructive criticism? I should criticize you the way you want. Is that the definition? More often than not, if you look at it carefully, and that criticize me, but let me feel okay. But look, criticisms will come your way. Just be prepared for it. And that provided I don't cross the line, I am measured and tempered, and then I know I work within the framework of the law. And then we are good to go. All right. But I believe, and I believe strongly, in that what he said on that, don't engage in blame game. I agree with him perfectly. Why? We don't need blame game now, because how we have arrived here, we need to get ourselves out of this place, and it doesn't require blame game at all. Now, all that you need is to be able to put your plan down and then make sure that you fix the problem we have. But of course, ensure that what plan that you bring out would really help us to address the problem, and at the same time, lessen the pain. As we are going towards IMF, we are likely to be confronted with a lot of difficult measures. But what we can do for ourselves, I am sure that is where the great man is coming from. That we need to be very careful so as to not to exacerbate the situation, and that our political leaders need to think right and get this thing fixed.
Now, Accra hosts World Book Capital April 24, and for the next 12 months, the global attention of education will turn to Ghana for various reading initiatives and activities as Accra hosts this year's World Book Capital. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, that is UNESCO, chose Ghana to host the 2023 World Book Capital, an initiative that focuses on developing the book and creative arts industries, which for me, I didn't even think of this when I looked at the story. That library in Airport around Gold House, which was opened at a point. For a long time, it hadn't been opened. Then there was a launch. Whenever I pass by that stretch, I don't see any activity there. It doesn't appear there's any life there. Did we just, and I could be mistaken, if I am in error, I would admit it. But every time I pass there, no matter the time of day, earlier in the day, even if it's in the morning, if it's in the afternoon, if it's in the evening, dead, no activity. Did we just launch the place and then what? It's a kiddie, library. It's a magnificent edifice close to the Zenith Bank. Close to this pharmacy, there's a hotel, a pharmacy, and then the Zenith Bank. I don't know, but in line with this, if we are not making the most of it, I think we ought to. On the international front, huge security operation for Joe Biden's visit to Belfast in Northern Ireland, and that's going to be a bit of a historic visit. We also remember at this point, it just brings to mind the history, John F. Kennedy, who had Irish roots. IMF predicts fall in interest rates, and I'll just take this story because we're talking about the IMF and our own growth projections for this year and the next. Interest rates in major economies are expected to fall in the future because of low productivity and aging populations, according to a forecast. At least when it comes to aging populations, we don't have that problem. Now, the International Monetary Fund says increases in borrowing costs are likely to be temporary once high inflation is brought under control. That is another situation we are facing here. It has become critical because borrowing has gone that high. And if you're already on a facility, it has gone that high, and many people are bleeding. So those are the projections there. And finally, tough-talking Erdogan lashes imperialist West, and the president of Turkey, or Turkey, if you like, on Tuesday condemned quote, global imperialist and played up Turkey's might as he unveiled his Islamic-rooted party's manifesto in next month's knife-edge parliamentary and presidential polls. It's interesting, the sort of tightrope Erdogan walks, because on one end, he is in bed with the West. If I'm not mistaken, he is with NATO. But on the other end, there's a whole new dynamic. And again, maybe since we're talking politics here, Erdogan has been in power for a long time. I don't know what you think about what his achievements so far have been when it comes to making Turkey a better place. I don't know. I'm just thinking all around. If you have any ideas, any thoughts, you can share them so we can move on.
Right. If you look at Turkey, there is that difficulty on the part of their political leaders where you are part of Europe and at the same time you also lean towards the Middle East or the Arabic world. That also creates a division in terms of your foreign policy posture. What is it that you have to do? You need to craft it in such a way that you're able to serve the two interests very well without compromising on your own interests. And that balancing act has been the difficulty with Turkey in trying to make giant strides. If you look at how they have grown the economies and the rest of them, we believe that if had it not been that type of difficulty, they would have done far better. But they know how to handle their problems. So we'll leave them for now, and we hope and pray that they'll be able to resolve these things and then get the business done very well. But if you look at all these things, you realize that Turkey, in spite of everything, is doing well. Let's look at the Book Capital project you talked about. A very wonderful program, and it's good. Anything that leads to production of book and dissemination of information from it and giving people the opportunity to have access to content that will really help to build society, I am all for it, and it's a good thing. All right. If you go to some of the powerful states, or you come across important libraries. I was in Harvard Library, one of the greatest in the world. Any book published under the sun, there's a copy there. So you can imagine, if you are a researcher, you are not in need of any material. Just go there and then you are good to go. Other universities have similar facilities and it's working well. My own school, UJ, in spite of scarce resources, we've done a lot by equipping our library, making sure that the department libraries, the hall libraries, they exist. And they are getting, even now, we are getting services, electronic data, and electronic articles and electronic books and the rest of them. If you come back to the issue of the national one, I have also gone around and then you see some of our libraries in activity. You go there, even books. I used to, patronize the Accra Library, which is close to the Supreme Court, a lot with one of my friends who is one of the big political actors today. And we've been using that place. And those days, and even up to now, I don't see much activity. I may be wrong because I've not been there for a very long time. But a few periods that I visited, I thought that we need to support the library and then encourage the culture of reading. Let people just walk there and read for lecture, for knowledge, for research, and all that. That is not what is happening here. So you can put in all the resources, put up these edifices, but at the end of the day, people will not patronize. So it doesn't serve the purpose for which they were. We need to strengthen. If it doesn't exist, we need to build one from the secondary schools, the primary secondary schools up to the university, so that people become in tune with the practice of going to the library and then research, read, and then have a discussion. So Francis Bacon said that even the best of all scholars, you need to what? Read, because reading maketh a man. It said writing an exact man, and conference, then you are a ready man. So you need to read, you need to conference, and you need to what? Put your thoughts into writing, and then you are good to go. I think this culture we need to.
Hello, Doc. Well, we'll try to get Dr. Asa Asante back, maybe just to conclude the conversation. But the Finder newspaper rapidly set up creditor committee for Ghana. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen appeals. And I wanted to wrap with these two papers, the Daily Guide newspaper and the Ghanaian Times. Now, the Daily Guide newspaper on page 6 talks about that situation with many people involved with the murder or an assault on security operatives. So, soldier killer, end quote, because it's not been confirmed, granted bail. And one of the 6 suspects standing trial for the murder of Tupa Sheriff Imura Taifa, a suburb of Ashaiman in the Greater Accra region, Ibrahim Abdul Rakib, has been granted bail on health grounds. He has been granted a 150,000 Ghana cedi bail with 3 sureties, 2 to be justified with landed property by the court presided over by Simon J. Gaga. So that's the first situation. In the second, cop beaters granted 70,000 Ghana cedi bail. And the Ifiduase District Court in the Ashanti region has granted a 70,000 Ghana cedi bail to 7 persons who attacked a police officer on duty at Kumau. 1 other suspect is on the run. So initially 6 had been apprehended, 2 were on the run. Now the 7th has also been apprehended, and they've been slapped with that 70,000 Ghana cedi bail. Now when you get to the Ghanaian Times, 2 stories, and it's a wrap from us here. Farmer 39 to die by hanging for murder in 2017. It's been a while since we actualized capital punishment in our country. And the likes of Amnesty International and others would say we should actually get past it. There's also Let's Fight Corruption Nationwide, Apostle Nyamiche to Christians. Doc, welcome back. So let me just swing this by you so we can wrap. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, Let's Fight Corruption Nationwide, that's Apostle Nyamiche to Christians, the chairman of the Church of Pentecost, saying that. And in a secondary high court presided over by Justice Efianyako Edu Amankwa on Thursday sentenced Ibrahim James, a farmer at Fawokabra near Enchi in the Western North region, to death by hanging. He pleaded not guilty to the charge of murder, and he looked pensive while the judge delivered the sentence. It's the first time in a while that I've heard that capital punishment is going to be brought to bear. Quick thoughts on this, Doc, as we wrap?
Yeah, I'll look at corruption.
Right.
It has been a difficult one for this country. And if you look at research, the literature, it is replete with a lot of corruption, research. Levine, who was a political scientist, and then he was also with my department, did a whole lot of work on corruption. We have seen that time and again. Political actors will always give us hope that they are ready to confront corruption. You recall President Kufuor, 0 tolerance for corruption. You recall Nana Akufo-Addo, I will protect the public purse. You cast your mind back into the Third Republic and the rest of them. Always there is the need to fight corruption, and you see political actors will not hesitate at all to let the people know that they want to fight corruption. But when it comes to the real action, they chicken out, they run away. Later, you remember when corruption cases became numerous in Kufuor's government. You heard his answer. All right. Now, this government doesn't talk about the fight against corruption anymore. Look at Transparency International, and you realize that our fight has not been that effective. If you look at where the NDC John Mahama ended, all right, and where we are now, it tells you that since 2020, and then 2023, we have not made significant progress.
Right.
The 43% is what we are hovering about. And remember that the closer you are to 0, the more corrupt you are.
Yeah.
Or your inability to fight corruption. I believe that this problem will be taken seriously and addressed head on. Look at the money that slipped through our fingers through corruption. $3 billion. The Ghana Integrity Initiative gives us this idea. And look at what we are receiving from the IMF. If we fight corruption and fight it very well, we will reduce some of the lingering challenges we have in our governance system. And then we'll create the fiscal space for us to generate resources and manage our business well without going to entangle ourselves with conditionalities from the World Bank and the rest of them. I think it is incumbent upon us as a society that we need to do this and do it for ourselves, not for anybody, and ensure that corruption is nipped in the bud. If we fail to do that, I'm afraid we're likely to have problems, and every time we run to the IMF World Bank. Remember that no lunch is free.
No lunch is free. You remind me of back then in the classroom. Dr. Kwame Asante, thank you so much. Political scientist, director for the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. We wish you a very good day, sir. And he joined us for the news review. It also reminds me of what he just said, because the IMF in downgrading our growth projections as a country also talks about fiscal slippages. How do we deal with that? Well, just to cap off the conversation, this segment is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They are offering you free prostate screening, free female fertility screening. Locate them in Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, in Kumasi, Kronoma Boehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's also Takrady Anaji Estate, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiama Enzima. The call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And that's how we end the news review. But up next, we serve you sports.
The global economy remains on track for a gradual recovery from the pandemic and Russia's war on Ukraine. China's reopened economy is rebounding strongly. Supply chain disruptions are unwinding, while the dislocations to energy and food markets caused by the war are receding. The massive and synchronized tightening of monetary policy by most central banks is starting to bring inflation back towards its targets. At the same time, serious financial stability-related downside risks have emerged. In our latest forecast, global growth will bottom out at 2.8% this year, before rising modestly to 3% next year, almost unchanged from our January projections. Global inflation will ease, although more slowly than initially anticipated, from 8.7% last year to 7% this year and 4.9% next year. This year's slowdown is concentrated in advanced economies, where growth is expected to fall to 1.3% this year, before increasing modestly next year. By contrast, emerging market and developing economies are already pushing ahead in many cases, with year-end growth accelerating to 4.5% this year from 2.8% last year. The recent banking instability reminds us, however, that the situation remains fragile. Once again, downside risks dominate. First, inflation is much stickier than anticipated, even a few months ago. While global inflation has declined, this reflects mostly the sharp reversal in energy and food prices. But core inflation, excluding energy and food prices, has still not peaked in many countries. It is expected to decline to 6.2% this year, still well above target. Activity too shows signs of resilience. At this point in the tightening cycle, we would expect to see more signs of output and employment softening. Instead, both output and inflation estimates have been revised upwards for the last 2 quarters, suggesting stronger than expected global demand.
And so that is the IMF situation as far as Ghana is concerned. We are on that slippery slope. In recent times, however, we've heard the IMF boss Georgieva, or Kristalina Georgieva, calling on our creditors to do something about our debt situation. China has been called upon to do same, and we're inching towards securing that deal. But how soon we can get everyone on board and secure that is the issue. Along all of that conversation, along that same trajectory, we also have growth projections as far as our economy is concerned. Now, the IMF's growth projections, according to the World Economic Outlook for Ghana, stood at 2.8%. That has been revised in recent times to 1.6%, even below 2%. They are projecting that this will happen on the back of fiscal slippages owing to debt issues, among others, budget deficits, among others. But in 2024, the projection is that the economy may grow to 2.9%. That reality will also be hinged on whether we can contain spending in an electoral year. All of those dynamics will come to play. Whether we can tame inflation, all of that will come to play. Well, joining us for a conversation on our economy and our status as far as the IMF program is concerned, we have Eric Amponsan Boateng. He is an economist and tax analyst. He joins the conversation. We also have Seyram Kawo, senior lecturer, University of Cape Coast School of Business, and Dr. Michael Ayamga. He is a development economist with the UDS. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning.
I'll start with you, Seyram. When you look at the latest dynamics when it comes to our agenda towards securing an IMF program, a deal, what sort of progress would you say we have made?
We have a slow progress. We've been able to do the things that we are supposed to, relying on is to take their own decision with taking what we offer and the benefits they tend to derive. And bank have stated that we have not made much in negotiations. I think that when the president that we are going to get the IMF deal by end March, creditor committee would have China would have agreed that they will be able to help out because they came, but so far have not had the creditor committee informed, and they are using this meeting during this other things are done. So far we have made a small progress because gap open up to the Ghanaian population to tell us what they are putting up with us, and that is very worrying for us.
Thank you for those initial comments. Let me go now to Dr. Ayamga. For you, when you look at where we stand currently, what progress do you think we have made up to this point? And is it the kind of progress, acceleration that you would have expected as of April of 2023?
Yes, I think that we have been slow in terms of our own predictions. We thought that by the end of first quarter we would have rounded up our negotiations with the IMF, if not concluded with the board negotiation, and it's been very close to it. As it stands now, we are currently still dealing with our external creditors, hoping that we can get them to make the needed concessions that we want in order to secure the IMF deal. So, yes, we have been able to conclude the domestic debt exchange program to a certain degree. We have made initial contact with our creditors, tried to engage China, which many have asked us to do. I begged to differ because I was not particularly pleased with our decision to prioritize China. We owe China 1.8 billion, and we are talking about almost 30 billion. So even without China forgiving us our debt, if the rest come to the table, we should be fine. So
Wait, just to get some clarity on what you're saying there, because China is our biggest lender as of now. When you look at, in fact, when you look at some of the creditors, a pool of them put together, China alone with the about $1.9 billion is a behemoth. So are you saying that if all of those come on board, but China doesn't come on board, it will still be okay for Ghana? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, Ben, yes, we'll be fine, because I think that we are being dragged into these geopolitical discourses and tempted to believe that China is the big elephant in the room. I don't think so. Yes, we owe them 1.9 billion. But if the Bretton Woods and the Eurobond, the chunk of the debt in the Eurobond market, then even from the institutions, if they come together and decide that they want to write off our debt or give us some concession, even if China doesn't play ball, we should be able to go ahead. So we can't hinge our entire negotiation on China. I think that that grandstanding against China is only making things difficult. I believe that others owe us collectively, we owe others collectively over 20 billion. And if they come to the table, I believe that China will come. So what they do should not be conditioned on what China do. I think that they should come to the table on their own merit and with the conviction that they want to help Ghana navigate this crisis, rather than saying that we have to get China to come to the table to agree to certain things before they do.
So two quick questions on the back of that. Does that smack of any hypocrisy from the end of the West, some of our creditors, to whom we owe such huge sums? That is one. And two, is it not only financially sound when they say we're not going to waive your debt, or maybe to help you gain sustainability as far as your debt stock is concerned, only for you to end up using the money that the IMF will give you to repay loans owed to China, which has not come on board? If China fails to come on board and you secure funding only to pay China, they feel that is not apt. Is that not a reasonable, logical proposition?
Ben, you and I know that those arrangements can be made, those conditions can be put on the table, that you are giving Ghana a brief on condition that they do not pay China with your resources. And I believe that if they move, I'm sure China will also make a move. Yes, I do agree that there is certain...
But China has a history, especially on the African continent. They have a history when it comes to debts and the way they approach debt when unsustainable levels are arrived at. We know the footprint on the continent. They usually wouldn't go a certain way. They may extend your debt, but they usually don't approach it from the end that the West does.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of China. I have no reason to be defending China, but I think that a lot of that revolves around conspiracy rather than reality. If you look at China's debt history and debt negotiations, China has written off significant proportion of debt to those that owe it. And yes, there are situations where China has more or less tried to enforce certain conditions, but I don't think that China is as bad as has been painted. I think that if it comes to the debt trap diplomacy, China is as guilty as the West here. And as we are sitting here, I think that did we have to even be going under domestic debt treatment, which was an experiment and still is an experiment in the first place? Couldn't we have looked at another path of getting Ghana out of this without domestic debt treatment? But let's be serious here. We have a debt here to owe about 57 billion or so. Some of it is maturing in 10 years time. Ben, I'm talking about 10 years. Did we have to restructure all of it? If our intention was to create fiscal space for Ghana to grow, we could have looked at those debts that are due in the short to medium term and then help the country restructure those ones. And let's see whether it can grow and still meet its obligations with the long-term debt. To me, that would have been the best approach. But because of 3 billion, we have to restructure every debt in the table here, and that is why Ghana is struggling. Yes, I agree that we borrowed too much, and if you, last week I spoke to you whilst I was in Nairobi, and if you walk on the streets of Nairobi and you see what the debt is doing to that country and that country's infrastructure, you can understand their struggles. Our story is different here. Yes, we do have a very precarious situation that has been caused by our government mismanagement of our credit receipts. There's no running away from that. But having said that, we should look at a way of getting this country out of it. And as of now, we just enumerated the things that come as a result of what domestic debt treatment. You are talking about the reducing consumer investor confidence in the country. You are looking at a situation where inflation keeps rising because government has to continue looking internally to get its finances. You're looking at a situation where we struggle to contain inflation and the cost of borrowing going up. All these things are going to curtail our ability to grow. And that is because of the debt treatment. It's not because of increasing expenditure or all tied down to a government size and other things. Yes, they are part of the case. But now what is going on is the effect of the domestic debt treatment that has waned on investor confidence beginning to kick in and Ghana suffering. So that is my worry here. And I would like to say clearly that the IMF is not the solution in the room here. Over the years, we have been skeptical about the IMF, but when it got to this point, our attention has been on government, and we have been blaming government all day. But if you look at the solution the IMF is bringing to the table here, it's also worsening the country's situation in the sense that we are being asked to do something that has largely not been done before. There is no blueprint in terms of how it's going to play out. And we look like we are a country where the IMF is now experimenting with new tools and ideas that it does not know how it will turn out. And I think that it is rather unfortunate that we, scholars, researchers, and industry players have allowed the IMF to look like the one trying to help Ghana here. I don't think they are. They could have sought a way out if they wanted to help this country. And that is, let's break the debt down, look at those that are due, and restructure those ones, treat those ones, and let Ghana grow out of this. What we are doing now is trying to tell the country that treat all your debt, make sure that all your creditors are on the table. It's not going to help this country. And we haven't seen the worst of it yet.
We haven't seen the worst of it yet. Let me come to Mr. Amponsa Boateng. Your co-panelist, I mean, you just heard him. He says, we've not seen the worst of this yet. And again, we don't have a blueprint as far as this debt restructuring really is concerned. This is a bit novel in this space. And how we're going about it could be problematic. We've even heard the likes of statesman Dr. Sir Sam Jonas say, in executing this, we must give a human face to it, looking at the consequences on businesses, on those who are on facilities and all of that. Now, when you look at the progress we've made as far as this IMF deal, are you satisfied at where we are? And have we got to the point where now we're forcefully knocking on the doors of the IMF on the back of our creditors and the posturing? Yesterday, there were meetings concerning whether or not it would be given the green light. What is your stance? Hello, Mr. Amponsa Boateng. Are you with us? Well, hello. Go ahead. I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Good morning to your viewers and listeners. I think that for any economy to be able to grow and develop, we expect that the output, the growth, should be sustainable. Now let's ask ourselves, in the case of Ghana, is that the case? I do not think so. And with the bailout, clearly, I think we are a bit late if we consider what government has had to do for us to even go through the DDEP, and even to the extent that the IMF is now coming to our defense and asking our debtors, okay, to look at how our debts can be sustainable. Okay, so now if you even look at the growth rate, the rate globally is 3%, and the IMF initially made a projection for Ghana, which was 2%. Now, because of what has happened in the first quarter of the year, they've had to revise it to 1.6%. Okay, so clearly what it means is that, in fact, we should have taken the decision to go to the IMF in 2022, but I think that we felt we would be able to manage things and turn things around. And so, unfortunately, we have had to come to this point because if we do not get the bailout by probably the end of this month, it is going to have an effect on the growth and development of Ghana. I am saying so because you will remember that just 2 weeks ago, 3 new bills have been they've been passed. We are yet to have the president to give his assent, but already businesses are everybody's complaining, and it is because of the fact that even right from the beginning of the year, we introduced an additional 2.5% for the VAT, which is already killing some of the businesses. And we are not careful. What is going to happen is that it is going to get worse. Now, we are even waiting for the IMF to be able to speak to our debtors as well as probably the creditors to be able to help us so that we'll be able to get the bailout. So if you ask me, I think that we've been rather slow, but like we always say, it's better late than never. You know, globally, yes, some economies are not doing well. And yesterday, for example, I saw it in the news that Great Britain, which is a giant, is going to have issues this particular year. And this is because of what they have been through. Remember the brouhaha last year when their finance minister was appointed.
So Kwesi Kwarteng.
Very good. Yeah, very good. You see, so the issue is that it is a kind of a global thing. But I believe that in every bad situation, if you're able to plan properly and manage things better, you'll be able to come out of it and then take advantage of the situation to make things better. So I would say that, yes, we have been slow. What disturbs me is that if you look at the budget, okay, we are expecting to raise about 4 billion Ghana cedis with the introduction of the new taxes. They are yet to be implemented. So what it means is that the first quarter is gone, right? So what it means is that the revenue that we even expect to raise, we are not going to get it. Secondly, we are midway in the month of April, and still, so it means that 4 months of the year is gone. So the issue is that how soon will we be able to go through all the processes and enable us to get the $3 billion that we expect from the IMF? Now, what is happening in Ghana at the moment is that due to the GDP, most people have lost confidence in the economy. And what it means for the businessman is that, hey, I'm not going to invest. And we know that investment is a major key thing that drives a nation forward. So that is what I would say. We really need to be fast about it. I would have loved that we get the facility by the end of this month, so that at least from 1st of May, then we'll be able to roll it out. But you see, I will mention that the IMF bailout, it is just a temporary thing. If we get the facility and we do not put it to good use in terms of using it to create jobs, infrastructure, and all that, what will happen is that just after a few years, we will go back, and that will probably be the 18th time that we'll be running to them. So that is what I would say for now. You see, you even look at inflation, okay, and you agree with me that inflation is tied to what? Growth. And at the moment, as at the end of February 2023, the rate of inflation was 52.8%. Okay, we also have to look at interest rates. The Bank of Ghana has to probably look at the policy rate, because all of these have effects on the growth and development of the country. So it's not late, but I am pleading with probably our finance minister and all those persons involved to, as much as possible, try and work very hard so that at least before the end of this month, we'll be able to get a facility. I think that will even enable us to plan and also be able to support the budget that we have been able to put in place. The other issue is, I'm sure because of the hue and cry about the 3 tax bills that have already been approved, the president probably hasn't given his accent to it because everybody is talking about it. I said the last time that I spoke on this platform that I don't think that it was right for these, or it is right for these new tax measures to be put in place. I say so because if you look at our tax to GDP ratio, at the moment it's about 13.5. It used to be 12. Now we've come up to 13.5. And the finance minister is saying that if these 3 tax bills are introduced, it will move the figure up to about 18.5. But I think that we can do much better because, you see, if you introduce new taxes, we must be able to consider the effects of these taxes on businesses, on output and all that. And that is very key because, you see, if you do not make sure that you rather widen the tax net and also cut down on your expenditure, then we will be just dancing around the table. So that is what I'll say.
Let me bring in Sairam Kawa. Sairam, for you, we're looking at $58 billion in debt generally, about $5.5 billion of that in the offing, which we're trying to restructure generally, hoping for $3 billion from the IMF. At this point, would you say China is the big elephant in the room? Would you disagree with Dr. Ayamga, who feels we can actually go ahead with this even if China is not on board?
Okay, so I'll humbly disagree with Doc on that particular point. In finance, no amount is small, no amount is big. There is the need for us to bring everybody on board. That small person that you think might not be relevant in this particular debate might be the one that will consume everything if the rate is very high for the debt that we are talking about. And so China is very crucial in this particular debate. The geopolitics are going to play roles, but then the country as a whole will need to look at the whole debt situation. Once we are cut off from the international financial market, there is no country that developed from borrowing to pay debt. If you borrow and you are using it to pay debt, you are perpetually going to be indebted. And all the amount of money that you are making will be used in paying your debt. And if care is not taken, your creditors will take over your assets. And that is where we actually find ourselves. The monies that we borrow, what do we use them for? Do we use them for manufacturing, production, to generate employment in the economy? And once employment is generated, more tax revenues will be taken by the government to pay off these debts over time. And so we have gotten it wrong as a country, the way we borrow to do things. And we have nothing to show for some of the monies that we borrowed. If we borrow and the amount of money we use to borrow are for three things and the debt is not paying themselves, and we need to go and borrow to pay these debts that we borrow. And any time that we're going to borrow, we have to go and pay extra interest on this amount of money that we borrowed. It's not going to help us. And so the debate for me should be focused on what we can do as a country. We've gone to IMF for 17th time. This is the 17th time we've gone there. And we are going back to them for the same reasons. We have not transformed our economy. My colleague was talking about the tax revenue bills that have been passed. No country developed from taxation. No country developed from borrowing. We can only develop when we add value to the resources that we have in our country. Development depends on production, depends on manufacturing, the services that we are adding, the value that we are adding to things. And so the amount of money that we are even going for, what are the programs that we have for it? Because it's for 3 years. After 3 years, what next? So there is the need for our leaders to listen to experts. There is the need for sustainability in all the things that we do. And when we're talking about sustainability, we are talking about meeting the needs of the present without compromising the needs of future generations. Environmental issues, social issues, governance issues all come together to help us to become a sustainable country. There are loans that we go in for. What is the guarantee that the loans that we are going in for are sustainable? Our loans are not sustainable. That is why IMF will have to come in. That is why they are bringing in China. That we can do whatever that we want to do. But look, your loan per the GDP that we have is not sustainable. You cannot contain it. So there is the need for us to reprofile the loan and ensure that we are meeting the needs. We can go to a market and for a bond that is lasting for 10 years and you are charging an interest of over 19%. If you look at our treasury bill rates, the rates that we are paying on it is not sustainable. And for that reason, we are in a situation that we have self-created. And if we have self-created these situations, there is the need for us to go back to the drawing board and see how best we can come out of the woods. So the size of government, our expenditure, making sure that we get value for money. Government should stop the issue of freebies. If there is something that is supposed to be done in the country, we build hospitals. The amount of money we borrow in building hospitals, we need to get the revenue from the hospitals to pay for this amount of things. We are polluting our environment, borrowing money to ensure that we treat water and we give the water out free of charge. Some of these things are the things that we are suffering for today. And so the issue of every country coming on board to help all of us is very critical. And for that reason, I will support the call for China to come on board, because we can do whatever we want to do with the Paris Club, with World Bank, IMF, and all those things. But we can go back to China and do something else. And that will derail the progress we want to make over time.
Let me bring in Dr. Ayamga now. We're talking about sustainability and how we've dealt with our own economic situation, how we've maybe overborrowed. You'd hear the likes of Kwame Pianim, among others, talk about the fact that in a way we've dug ourselves into this grave where we find ourselves. But then you look at examples. In recent times, a lot of examples have been cited. The Ivory Coast, even Togo. But then on some levels, it would appear that we are faring better. But if you look at the performance of a country like Botswana, what they have done over time and how they've been able to weather this storm, what does it say, especially as we've heard Mr. Sairam Kowal make mention of, what does it say about what we should be looking at, what we should be doing as we approach this IMF program moving forward to prevent that return to the doorstep of the IMF? What are some of the things we ought to be looking at, especially when you take the example of Botswana, for example?
Yeah, but I think over the years, we do not adhere to our own plans and programs. And when we go for these loans, then we get the loans. Then it becomes who has sway with who in the corridors of power. Which project gets implemented depends on who wields power and who you are able to talk to in the governance system. So that has been a problem. The lack of a clear policy continuum from government to government and even within the state institutions in a particular government has more or less meant that there have been misapplications of our loans, that we don't actually select a program, implement it, see it to the end. And we have largely also bitten more than we can chew. That is, we spread our resources so thin across the country, everywhere, to the extent that we don't complete any project. Can you imagine if we have focused on a few projects and finished them and they come on stream and they are contributing to our economy? Everywhere you pass in this country, you find uncompleted projects. You have government programs that are abandoned midway. So all these things mean that the borrowing we are doing, we are not actually using them to generate finished products or finished programs that contribute meaningfully to our growth. And I think that is the problem. More or less, it is the attempt to always govern from a manifesto rather than from a clear-cut national development plan that has gotten us here. So anywhere President goes, out of the blue, he mentions something that he wants to do, and then we have to divert resources from somewhere that we didn't plan to do. So those lack of clear-cut planning and adhering to what we say we'll do is the reason why we don't finish the projects. And because the projects don't finish, they don't come on stream. And that has largely been our problem here. The strong men within our institutions make sure that we don't adhere to what we want to do. I think that going forward, we're going to probably get 3 billion. I'm optimistic that, yes, it may not come when we need it, but we'll eventually get it. And when we get it, we should cut down on the consumables. We use these loans to pay salaries, to fund day-to-day government business rather than investing in the strategic sectors. Our businesses are suffering, and that is the engine. That is the only way we can grow up. And as we stand now, as we sit now, there is no way we can grow out of this mess without strategically creating the environment for our businesses to begin to grow again and to generate employment and tax revenue.
And as it stands now, looking at the economic situation, stifling as it is, you look at inflation, you look at the cost of borrowing, you look at the exchange rate, you look at all those dynamics, and you look at the fact that tax upon tax is being heaped upon the back of the ordinary Ghanaian, the business community. How realistically can we do that?
Yes, we have to begin looking at some homegrown enterprises that we can support in the short term to see whether we can achieve some import substitution in the things that we largely import. Because what I suspect is that we are going to get this money, use it to show up our reserves, the cedi strengthens, and then it cycle begins again. We start importing. So we should not use these credit receipts to subsidize imports. What I think is that there are a whole lot of small and medium enterprises that can produce some of the things that we need in this country. We must identify these ones and support them to be able to produce the basic things that we import from China, like the seats we are sitting in, like the cabinet behind me here, and a whole lot of things. Once we begin making small incremental gains, the confidence will come back to the economy. But I don't see us in a big way stimulating industry, because last week, as I said, the taxes that we have imposed are going to further shrink economic activity in the country, and we cannot see that ending anytime soon. But yes, we can use this IMF program to provide investors with some confidence that in the long run we will come around, and then we look internally to see what we can cut, what we can reduce, what import we can stop. And then we grow from there. But I do not see any way forward apart from us being physically disciplined. Our physical discipline must be at its best. We have been calling for the downsizing of government machinery. I think that it is still way, way, way too big. It's now becoming inefficient. There are a whole lot of guys in the system duplicating the efforts and not getting things done. Others have disagreed that we need to do what we call cut the waste. But I've been saying that the size of government, you can liken it to having monkeys in a maize farm. The more monkeys you have, the more waste you get. So what we need to do is to reduce the size of government, and that will reduce the waste. The waste is because we have too many people spending on too many things. And let's hope that we can, as Ghanaians, come out of this. We have done it over and over again, and now is not the time to think that the country is going to collapse. Yes, I believe that the government posturing and the government positioning is not the best, and they are not giving confidence to every citizen. But I trust this country. This is the same Ghana that fought for independence, was the first country to go on independence, and the resilience of the Ghanaian will see us through. But I believe that our leaders must return the favor and sacrifice a little. That is what I want to see us do. And I want to see us sit on the table and look at our items, cross them. You see, we can't get something huge. Those days that we went and got $5-6 billion and came and organized KK parties, they are over. So we must look in our budget and cross out things one thing at a time. A situation where government comes to announce that, okay, we are no longer going to use our V8s, and the next day they are all riding them on high speed, on high ways, and here and there. It doesn't have anybody. You come and announce that you want to cut your salary, and all you do is the little small basic salary that you get. That's the one you cut. But the fat allowances, you still take them home. You still drive government vehicles on weekends and all those things. See, there's a lot happening in this country that if we can sit down and say we want to come out of this situation by looking at our books and crossing items one after the other, the whole country will be inspired to come after, to follow the lead of the president.
To fall in line.
Of it. So as it stands now, government is saying one thing, doing the other, and expect the citizens to lead, which is wrong.
Let me bring in Sairam Kawa. So this conversation, and again, Dr. Ayamga has gone to it, cutting the size of our expenditure. And some have said it starts from the executive. We heard the German ambassador, Ambassador Krul, say that, look, even in my country, we don't have this number of ministers doing this, doing that. You look at the list of the countries with the most sustainable economies across the world, and Germany is really up there, number 2 on some of those lists. So their advice you can take seriously. But on this bit about cutting government's expenditure, the purse, what do you make of it? Because some have said it doesn't contribute, it doesn't take away that much if you look at this broader conversation. But how? How can we seize full advantage of that moving forward in terms of cutting down our expenditure? Mind you, part of why our economic growth this year has fallen from 2.8% to 1.6% has to do with fiscal slippages. How can we measure this properly so that moving forward, that next program from the IMF is not something that we'll be looking for? How do we do that?
All right. Thank you very much. Every side of a budget have 2 issues. We're talking about the revenue and the expenditure side. And so if your expenditure, you are looking at the revenue you are going to bring, but you are not controlling the expenditure, you have a budget deficit. And so the expenditure needs to be reduced from government side, not only the size of government. We have the government size, the ministries, the agencies, the departments, and all those ones that are there. We have government appointees that are duplicating a lot of the work that these ministries and agencies are doing. And we do not have a blueprint terms of development plan, how these things are going to be executed. As my colleague said, a president stands out with a project and there is diversion of funds from one project to the other. We will not be able to develop in that particular tangent. And so we need to reduce the size of the government. We need to reduce expenditure. In times of crisis, you do crisis management. There are a lot of projects government talks about that they want to do. You manage the little that you have and suspend some of the capital-intensive projects that involves huge sums of money in this respect. The way and manner in which our projects are executed, we need to take a second look at it. I am of the strong view that the procurement law needs to be reviewed to look at how we procure IT for government entities. Because looking at the processes that you go through, a lot of the prices inflated. They are not the same as you go to the open market. These things, they all contribute to the expenditure that we are looking at. If a district can go to the market and buy a lorry tire, a car at the same price, the law is asking you cannot do that. Go through a middle person, a person through another person in order to get it. And then at the end of the price goes up. That will not help us. The increased cost of doing business. Government spends some amount of money in helping business, and they do not want to take this amount. While we have 0% interest rate, just borrow to the person have to repay the you. Another person will be able to look at it. The issue of sustainability is very key in our daily discourse in this country. And so we're calling on government, the president. It's not an issue of being against one person. It's not an issue of against a particular political party. It is about the future of our country, Ghana. If you want to appoint everybody, you want everybody, at the end of the day, we are just going to have serious issues. And the issue of political financing, as we can do, some of the people have financed the political party. And so a way to please them is to appoint them, to give them government businesses to do. And it becomes very difficult for us to say that we are not going to let them go. We have government of the Minister of Agriculture, we have the Minister of Fisheries, Road and Transport, Highways, and then we have housing, communication, digitization. And look at the chunk of resources that will go into some of these ministries, a work that could be done by one ministry are being done by several ministries when they all have technical directors in these ministries that are working. And so there is the need for us to have a paradigm shift from the way we do things. And I go in for what is trending now, that's the leadership. We should move from the normal way of doing things to a different way so that this country can be liberated.
Let me bring in tax expert Mr. Amponsa Boateng. If you look at what is happening, we've spoken about productivity versus taxation, and we're firmly in the grips of taxation. But you look at the economic outlook, according to the IMF, they say that moving forward, the global economy will be anemic. I just want to quote part of what the IMF has been saying. It says, with the recent increase in financial market volatility, the fog around the world economic outlook has thickened. Uncertainty is high, and the balance of risks has shifted firmly to the downside so long as the financial sector remains unsettled. That financial sector in Ghana has been unsettled by everything that has happened, and the taxes keep getting slapped on. So as we get ready to wrap the conversation, I would like to find out from you, gentlemen, securing the IMF deal, let's assume we get our foot through the door in this month of April. Maybe you could share with me, is that a realistic target to get our foot through the door in this month of April? And secondly, should we do that, what would be your expectations in terms of the balancing act of meeting the IMF's requirements, meeting the requirements of the agreement we have had so far, and yet shoring up our economy, protecting businesses, preventing them from going under? That is the final set of questions I'll pose to all of you gentlemen. I'll start with you, Ms. Ampo Sabwati.
I think that, yes, all of us are saying virtually the same thing. In Ghana, we have the National Development Planning Commission. And what I've observed over the years is that any time that we have a change of government, projects that have been initiated by the previous government, they are left. I feel so sad when I think, for example, about the Saglemi housing project. I also have in mind the Commander Sugar Factory. So I expect that, yes, we should be able to speed up the process and get the deal by the end of April. That will enable us to support the budget. And more importantly, what we need to do so that we don't go back to the IMF probably after a few years is that, one, we need to process our exports. The cocoa that we export, the gold that we export, cashew and all that. I think that if we're able to process them, we will be able to get the needed revenue that will enable us as a nation to grow. The other issue is that if you look at Ghana, we consume a lot of foreign products, fish, rice, oil. The question is that, can't we be able to encourage companies or businesses in Ghana to be able to produce some of these products? The other issue is that, let me take agriculture. About 60% of our population is involved in that sector. And it hurts me so much when during the bumper season, everything goes waste. When there's a glut, the fish goes bad, the tomatoes go bad and all that. So I think that government should be able to make sure or ensure that the products that come from these farmers, the government should buy all of them, the maize and all that. Because when that one is done, then the economy is going to grow. And like we've been saying, when you're able to sustain the output over a long period of time, then there's growth. And when growth is sustained over a long period of time, then there's what? Development. So we have to look at that. Our railway system, I have always said that, in my opinion, we probably wouldn't need to go for the IMF loan. That is, if you have planned earlier. Because if we had ensured that we had a very good transportation network, railways, we wouldn't need all those interchanges and all that. Because you see, if the buses that ply our routes, they come on time, our road network, they are good, the railway line, even in other countries. Look, a whole stretch, the coastal stretch of Ghana. Look, we should be able to build these small ports so that if I live in Intermark, for example, all I need to do probably is to drive to a port, pick a boat, and then come to work. I believe that, one, it will only save the fuel that we consume every year. Now, in a country where we have some oil refinery, I do not know what the use of that institution is. Because I tried to find out, and what I was told is that our share of the oil, if we're able to refine it here, or if we try to do the refinery here in Ghana, it will be cheaper to export the oil. Sorry, it will be cheaper to import the oil because we do not have the expertise the technology that we even use, at the end of the day, the cost of that oil will be so much that it will be better or it will be cheaper to import it. The other issue that we need to look at is the stability clauses. The stability clauses that we have in various agreements that we have with the multinationals and all that. We need to look at the exemption regime. And you see, if you grant tax exemptions to a body, what most of them do is that when the period for that exemption is about to expire, some of them, what they do is that they say, oh, the company is not doing well, you have to fold up. They fold up, these same persons set up other businesses, and then they still want those exemptions. I think that it's high time that the government even spoke with those companies that, yes, if you want us to give you those exemptions, as a nation, can we have at least a share? If it's even 10%, then you know that at the end of the day, whatever monies or whatever profits that they make, Ghana is going to get a bit of it. And finally, our state-owned enterprises, I think that they have a lot to do. It's only a few of them. I can mention just a few of them, but I don't think that it will be appropriate to give their names here. Only a few of them. Most of them, they run at huge losses, and they are still there. Okay, so I think we need to actually sit down, change our mindset, and then I believe that if we do the right things, within a very short time, we'll be able to restore what we've been yearning for all these years, and there wouldn't be the need to go to the IMF again.
Mr. Boateng, we're grateful that you took the time to join us for this conversation. Those are his final thoughts. Let me bring in Dr. Ayamga. What would be your final thoughts in that regard? Hello, Doc.
Yes, I'm around. Yes, I think, as I indicated, we need to look at SMEs, creating an environment for them to grow and then pay taxes for us to be able to increase our revenue. As my good friend said, you have to look at the revenue side and the expenditure side.
Hello, Dr. Ayamga. Doc, can you hear me?
Yeah, so I'm saying this is not the time to go on a tangent and then try to reinforce your elections chairs. These resources must be invested wisely, and we need to start by looking at businesses. Unfortunately, the environment is not encouraging, but government can lead by showing that clear desire to help businesses succeed by buying from them. We need to start looking at placing a ban on the importation of furniture and all those things in the offices. I get really sad when I enter an office and everything you see there is made in China. Recently, I changed the furniture in my house. I consciously went in looking for furniture made in Ghana, and I'm happy to use them in my home. I think that is how we will grow this economy going forward. I consciously made an effort to do away with all my foreign suits and dress made in Ghana, and as you can see, I'm doing it comfortably and I'm happy. I think I look nice in them. We can all grow this economy by doing the very small things that will create business and create economic activity. That is how we grow out of it. We can't just sit down and blame government. Yes, they are the reason we are in this mess. I don't want to defend that. But we can all, as individuals, do something to help this country. And government must lead. Government must lead by demonstrating that many of the things in their offices, in their homes, need not be purchased from China. They need not to be imported. If we target those things and then we get our local industries going. It's going to take small things, as I told you. I came back from Niger about a month ago. You go to a restaurant in Niger and they bring you bread. You didn't ask for bread, but that keeps the bread industry going. Can you imagine you go to every restaurant in this country and they give you a small bar of chocolate, whether you bought it or not? I mean, that will keep our local chocolate industry going. Somebody will be employed, taxes will be paid. If you go to a hotel room and then they give you some little bread as a snack and other things, we don't need something huge. We just need to sit down and do small things that will keep these small sectors going, people paying those little drops of taxes, and we can grow our way out of this. If we are expecting that the IMF deal is going to bring back some investor confidence and get us to be invited back into the capital market, say we are kidding. We are not going to get there any soon. The earlier we learn to raise the money we want to spend, the better.
Dr. Yamga, we're grateful that you took the time to join us. Insightful comments you shared with us this morning. I'll wrap with you, Sairam Kawo, for your concluding comments.
All right. No country developed through taxation and borrowing. There is the need for us to add value to the products that we have. There is a need to make sure that we live within our means. As a country, taxation will not help us. And hence, there is always the opportunity for us to grow through production, through manufacturing, adding value to the products that we have. Joy FM has aired items on one district, one factory, very good initiative. But some of the factories, the gas cylinder manufacturing company, have over 200 pieces of items that are lying down. And then Chinese have taken over the market. These are things that are not good. We need to protect the local industry, add value to whatever we are doing. That way we will be able to leave the wood. The IMF deal, for me, can only happen at the end of this quarter. That at least at the end of this quarter. If it comes earlier, that is good news for us. But those that we are going in for the money from them, they are not just going to give it to us on a silver platter. They will want every detail to be spelled out, and the things that they are going to bet, the relief that we are seeking from them. Yes, we are a nation that is proud, but we don't have our Ghanaian values, the Ghanaian culture that must be brought on board. That has been taken by political parties that seek political gains first before the nation. Put our country first in all that we do. And when we put our country first, we will be sustainable, and the generations after us will be proud of what we do. But if we put political parties first, sorry, the way it is. National Development Planning Commission should be independent of political parties. And all the political parties must pick their plans from the development plan. Make sure that we have the assurance committee from Parliament. That committee would ensure that those things that you put in your manifesto and you put in your budget, they are properly executed. In that way, we would see much more development. We shouldn't focus only on winning elections, and the next thing we think about is the next election. But the development of the country is a way forward. Thank you.
Thank you too. Sairam Kawo is a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast School of Business. We also heard from Dr. Michael Ayamga. He is a development economist at the University for Development Studies, and Eric Amponsah-Boateng, an economist and tax analyst. And you heard them, that last commentator there, Sairam Kawo, saying that the best we can look at is within this quarter to secure an IMF program. Only time will tell how the cookie crumbles in that situation. Right before we get into our next conversation and talk about faulty street lights, we all know water is life. And if you're thinking of water, awake purified drinking water is the way to go. I'll tell you why. Even if you're thinking for the kids, they have the perfect sizes. 330 ml bottles, you can just fit it into their kiddie bags and they're good to go. 500 ml bottles, 750 ml bottles are available as well if you go heavy on water. And 1.5 liters for the heavy drinkers like me. But beyond all of that, Awake Purified Drinking Water also has 19-liter jar bottles for homes and offices. It's ideal. You can have it there and serve a number of people. So all you need to do now is stay awake with Awake Purified Drinking Water. But there's something that is even more heartwarming for me. For every bottle of Awake Purified Drinking Water that you buy, an amount is made as a donation to the National Cardiothoracic Center. And that for me is indeed heartwarming. For those who may go seeking help with their heart issues and not be able to fund it. So for every bottle you buy, a contribution is made toward that kitty. It's a product of Casapreco Company Limited. If you want to make bulk purchases, this is the number to call. 0262 351 251. 0262 351 251. Remember, this advert is FDA approved. Now, when we return, I started the show, especially in the course of the news review, talking about this. There are, along many intersections of our country, traffic lights that are faulty. There's one right down our stretch here, close to where we work in Kokomlimli. There's one right down the road. It's faulty, and when you get to that intersection, you would have to wait, you would have to be very cautious. I've seen near misses in terms of accidents right down our road, right down our stretch. And there are many of such scenes in different parts of our city and in different parts of the country. What is accounting for this? Who has to take on this role? Urban Roads, Ministry for Roads, Transport, the MTTD, what role do they play? And with the carnage, the spate of carnage, how do we mitigate the situation? That conversation comes up next on the AM show. Do stay.
The city of Accra now gradually home of dysfunctional traffic lights. A 2021 research conducted by the National Road Safety Authority on non-functional traffic signals across the country has revealed that nearly half, 48% of all traffic lights in the Greater Accra region are not functioning properly. In a statement disclosed that a total of 75 traffic lights have been identified to be non-functional across the country. According to the National Road Safety Authority, the presence of these non-functional traffic lights is a threat to road safety and potentially increases the risk of road crashes in the country. The authority further urged duty bearers to ensure the functionality of street lights and traffic lights, or it may be compelled to enforce the standards against the authorities responsible. It said, given the threat and the duty imposed on the authority to reduce road traffic crashes, injuries and deaths, the authority directs that the Department of Urban Roads, the relevant assemblies and the Ministry of Energy should take urgent and appropriate steps to ensure the functionality of street lights and traffic signals. It said the authority may be compelled to exercise its mandate to enforce the standards against erring duty bearers should the irresponsibility persist. Welcome to the Awushi Barnyard traffic intersection here in Accra. Here on the busy N1 highway, which is an international highway, these traffic lights have not been working for months.
Dysfunctional traffic lights are becoming a major feature of the capital city. Like you can see, these policemen deployed here are ensuring that there are no crashes as a result of these dysfunctional traffic lights. But commuters are not satisfied with a stopgap measure. As they say, they have to spend more time in their vehicle, more than the necessary time that they would have spent if these traffic lights were working. Many of them are calling on city authorities to intervene and fix the challenge. They say these traffic lights have not been working for the past 5 months.
It's very unfortunate that the traffic light is not working. And I think the authorities responsible for fixing the traffic light must wake up and fix it, because this is not something that we cannot do. I have heard of places where overseas, where certain roads get destroyed, and within 2 or 3 days they fix it. I don't know why we can't fix our own traffic lights. So authorities should be up and doing and then fix the traffic light, because it's human lives at stake. I've heard several accidents happening here, and so myself, I'm also a driver, but it's only 3 days ago that I've been driving through this place that I realized that the light is not working. And we always have police people assisting motorists and pedestrians to cross the road in order to avoid inconveniences. So the authorities must wake up and work.
For the past 3 months, getting to 4 months, yeah, and they've not done anything about it. It caused a lot of accidents day in and day out. But I've seen say they want something to happen before they'll come and do it. Yeah, because the road minister, they always pass here, and they always pass here, but they want something to happen before they do, and it's not fair. You understand? Yeah, it's not fair. Mostly in the evening, it's dangerous here, because maybe I'll be coming from Kwashiman, and somebody to be coming from Kasua. Maybe you will not see, and maybe we can crash and something. Yeah, so it's too bad. I mean, it's too bad.
You want them to do something quick about it?
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah, they need to do something about it. But in Ghana here, there are some certain things when you talk about it, and people will start be pointing hands on you that this and that, like we are speaking against the politicians and one or two things. So let's see what God does. But they need to do something about it. It's serious. It's serious. Yeah. Because me, I am a driver. I am a younger driver. Yeah. So sometimes I work in the night. Yeah. So something like La Paz and this side, some of the traffic, they don't work. And even in Nima Junction at the police station where Nanado is staying, that place, it doesn't work sometimes. Okay. And it's very serious. Right? You not even see a policeman standing there to direct the traffic. Yeah. But there is a police station today. They want something to occur first, and they will rush and, hey, who did that? But it's not fair. It's not fair.
It's very bad. It's very bad. Sometimes, because it can cause accidents at any time. I don't know if they are waiting so that something will happen before they will fix it. We don't know. 7 months getting to a year now. This is a highway too. That's very bad. Yeah.
So what do you want them to do about it?
Oh, they have to fix it for us. They have to fix it. Yeah, that's what we want them to do.
Oh, this traffic light go off about 7 months now. But always here, traffic, we can't avoid it. So we are begging if they can come and do something about it for us. Because it's Christmas time. So we want that they should come and help us and do it for us. By 9:30, the police is not there. So all the cars want to go fast. So sometimes accident is happening there. So we are begging they should come and help us.
It has been taken about 6-7 months.
How bad is it?
I don't even know what to say about this traffic light because it has been kept long. And it is causing a lot of accidents here. So I don't even know what to say about it. Yeah. It makes us stay in traffic always. Yeah, always we be in traffic. Yeah, always we be in traffic. Sometimes from Kwashiman to this place, you can take even 1 hour.
Wow. Because of the traffic light that's not working?
Yeah.
So what do you want city authorities to do?
Everything is with the government. Right now, we have to put everything for the government to do something about it. Because if we talk, still they will not mind us. So we are all looking into them.
This is a daily occurrence here. As you can see, that taxi driver here is trying to fix his vehicle after another car rammed into his car right here on the high streets. The traffic light here, I'm told, has not been working for more than 2 years. And commuters and drivers are calling on city authorities to do something about the situation.
Here on the high streets in Accra, the situation is not different. Total chaos. There were 2 crashes within 5 minutes when we were here. Drivers here say the traffic lights have not been working for months.
I can say it's been out of use for almost about 2 years ago. Actually, the issue is that it has normally this skirmishes like petty accident do occur, especially if the AMA officers who have normally been stationed here to direct traffic are not at work. Actually, at times there are car crashes here and there, and minor accidents usually occur as a result of the lights not working. Yeah, I think that it's about time they actually step up to make sure that technically the technicians are. They have to. I think that it's long overdue. It's high time they actually make sure that it is repaired in order for it to start working here.
Speaking on the probe with MFA POW, road safety campaigner and president of the Accident Victim Support Foundation Ghana, Reverend Cyril Crabb, called for the deployment of traffic control assistance.
I would plead with whatever agency is in charge to fix this very, very important furniture on our roads that at least brings or improves vehicular movement and then improves efficiency for our roads to be more motorable. Or else, either that we are going to always record. And where I see it also again, if you ask me, we have many victims now, more victims. Every year we record over 10,000 victims, even though we have relatively, a reduction in the CIDs, but we still have many, and they keep on calling us. So if they can fix this one thing, which is very, very important, which brings order, without traffic light is like a football field or two teams playing without a referee. You can understand the chaos. I mean, it's so scary. And entering into 2023, we need to fix this particular program. And I'll quickly commend you, your outfit, JoyNews, for this. I'll still take it from Lawyer Otuahene, commending you. And we also will appeal to you from Accident Victim Support together with National Road Safety Authority to help demand accountability for the agency in charge. So we will see, lives on our roads, going on. Or else 2023, especially at Banyard, Malam Junction, Sakaman Junction, Dansoman Junction. We are in trouble. Okay. And so we will appeal. And also on behalf of Accident Victim Support, we are still appealing. If we can have support to support these victims. You've seen some of our works. We are appealing for support, financial support, and also equipment, to help these victims come back to life or have hope to live again. It will, by and large, help and also seal their lips. And I'm calling on every corporate agency to come and reach out for us and then, come and then support us so we can help these people. Okay. They are also Ghanaians. Yeah.
Head of Regulations and Compliance at the National Road Safety Authority, Kwame Kodwe, said the Department of Urban Roads lacks the commitment to fix the challenge.
It affects all of us. We all get into the road environment. We get frustrated by these lapses, more so when we have a duty to help resolve them. I want to believe that your reporters have animated the incident quite clearly. I have no reason to doubt the feedback, because on a regular basis we leave the unfortunate experiences and we also get similar feedback from the field. Yes, I think in December of 2021, out of my own observation, we thought that we should pay closer attention to these issues. So we issued an alert and followed up with an audit in June 2022. Primarily, the essence or the objective was two ways or twofold. First, we thought that we owed the public a responsibility to get them informed of these dysfunctional traffic lights, so that for those who are using these roads for the first time, they would be on alert and drive with care. Second, was to draw the attention of the Department of Urban Roads, which is the public agency with the frontline responsibility. In fact, the Department of Urban Roads has the basic or primary responsibility to deal with all matters of traffic lights. All the others that pretend to offer a suggestion or attempts to offer a suggestion are secondary duty bearers. So the objective really was to bring these constraints and complaints and observations to their concern, which we did. In fact, we did and gave them a 60-day period to get back to us. Instructively, we got a response from the department on it must have been on the 60th day or a day to the 60th day notice. And they confirmed that, yes, some of the traffic lights that we had reported as dysfunctional were not actually dysfunctional, but at the time of our inspections were off-duty power outages. But also considered that a good number of them were also out of operation due to traffic incidents and related matters. But the indication, as far as remedial actions was concerned, was that they had given some of the task on a contract in order to have them fixed. We have observed over the period, it's part of our plan. With some of them, when we went back, we saw some relative improvements.
Okay.
But in some others, it has been erratic. For instance, when you look at some of the traffic lights in Accra, in areas that you have mentioned, a particular traffic light that comes to mind on the Shiashi Shangri-La
the Okponglo one, for instance.
Yes, I mean, its functionality has been pretty erratic. It works today, tomorrow it's out of place. So it was our plan to really conduct an audit again in January to be able to appreciate the extent of work done.
So that's a detailed piece put together by my colleague Maxwell Agbagba on faulty traffic lights in Accra. If you're somebody who uses some of these areas that were mentioned, you know for sure that those lights are still not functioning. Take, for example, around the what's that place called? Just before you get to Malam, and that faulty traffic light, Awoshi traffic light, is not working. And it hasn't been working for a very long time. This morning, I've been joined by Cecil Gabra. He is a road consultant and also has his own Top Tech Transport and Logistics, which he is the CEO of, a consultant for the National Road Safety Authority and other transport companies. We've also got Engineer David Adonting, the Acting Director General of the National Road Safety Authority, for a conversation on this, a really important one. Good morning to you. Let me start with you, Mr. Gabra. First off, hope you had a good time during the Easter. I spoke to you. Your quick assessment of that exercise you carried out with the Road Safety Authority, visiting some road points and ensuring that people were driving responsibly during the Easter period.
Thank you so much, Bernice, and good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners. I think it was an excellent move, and I will just first of all congratulate my good brother who is also waiting online, Engineer David Adonting, for the good initiative to say, look, this time we are not going to go alone. We have to involve all of us, and I think it's a good start and it's a good beginning. What are we looking at? We are looking at reducing the accident rates, which I'll say Ghana is doing very well at this very moment. We are very careful, but then we just hoping that people will be very responsible enough to know that, look, the vehicle that they are driving is a machine and anything could happen. So good initiative, and I guess my brother will elaborate on
Exactly.
Exercise. Yeah.
He'll be joining us shortly, and I'll get all the details and find out if there were any arrests made or cautions given. But this morning, we're talking about faulty traffic lights. And you would admit with me, sir, that a lot of times we place the burden at the feet of the driver. Drive responsibly. You're holding a machine, and so be careful, blah, 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 blah. I have witnessed about 3 accidents just at the Aoshi intersection, and that's such a major point. It's such a major intersection that it baffles me why that traffic light has not been working for years. We seem to be putting a lot of focus on the drivers, and we are leaving those responsible for ensuring that we have good lighting on our streets, because that's also important. What you also notice in the evenings is that people are just using their highlights, okay, because they can't see, the street lights aren't working and they're blinding other drivers. Why does it appear that we are letting these authorities off the hook when it comes to the road safety conversation?
Thank you, Bernice. Honestly speaking, I'll tell you the fact that it's all due to money. It is money, okay? And don't blame the Department of Urban Roads alone. I think we should blame the ministry for not allocating the right amount of money for this repair and maintenance. Traffic lights are there to support us. And, you know, we all sang that beautiful song when we were kids. If you see the traffic light, there's something you should know. Stop and so on and so forth. But today I always tell people that the song has changed. If you see the traffic light, there's something you should know. Green means go, amber means go fast, and red means I'll say shim, which means go very, very fast, because drivers are also recalcitrant. Right, so good. Let me leave the driver's side and come to the real situation that we are seeing. Right, there's the issue of hits and run damages of the equipment, which we all see. Traffic lights are down, and who is supposed to repair it? I mean, that person who caused the accident must be arrested and must be dealt with. Theft of the equipment is also happening. Cables are being stolen, the covers of the chambers, and this is an exercise that my team went around to check, and we had some few conversations with the right people. Vandalism is also part. Damage of underground cables by unauthorized excavations, okay, must be looked at. And then burning of refuse. In Ghana, everybody can burn any refuse at any corner, and then that also has destroyed most of the equipment, right? Power fluctuations is also one thing. Inadequate funding, that's it. I mean, we are all paying, road tolls. Road tolls was in. I mean, it vanished for, let's say, a period of time, but it's back. What are we using the money for? And that such money is to repair and maintain the lighting system, maintain the traffic lights. And do we see it? It is not happening. Right. I spoke to a few companies that have been given that contract, and this is the information that I'm getting, that, look, it's all to do with funding. If there's money, they'll do it. But are we going to sit down for many people to die in this country out of road crashes? No, that is it. Right. I am not saying we should stand up and then maybe go for a demonstration and so on, but it's the same people who are also using these traffic lights, and it should be repaired as soon as possible.
Right.
Okay? Because if we do not repair it, we are going to have the increment of a lot more of accidents. And then it is, for us, the National Road Safety Authority's goal that this year, road crashes must be reduced. And this is also part of it, Bernice.
Mr. Gabra, ideally, I want to ask you this question because it's not within your mandate. But since you mentioned that you've been working and finding out from companies and getting information as well, let me just find out from you if you can speak specifically to the Awoshi traffic light, for example, which is a major intersection. Do we know why that light hasn't been working? And is it also a funding issue or an issue of a destroyed cable, etc.?
Well, Bernice, I must be honest with you that is totally out of my jurisdiction. I live off the Spinters Road, and I know our traffic light is not working. That's your area, but then going to check. I am sure to be an issue of underground, but promise me, if you give me some 10 minutes, as David is talking, I'm going to make some few calls and I'll get back to you and know what exactly is the problem. But it needs to be fixed. That is what I am saying. It must be fixed. What about the one at Shiashi? And that is even, I'm sure, very, very serious than Awashi. I don't know the Awashi, but it's serious. However, what we need to do as drivers, I mean, if the traffic light is not working, please and please, let's just use that simple system where one goes, the other will wait, one will go from the other end. It's really colorful in developed countries, okay? That we do not all rush to the traffic light and say, look, Mina Midru her first, Mina Meko, like, I mean, I know it's been done in the Ashanti region, but then please let's exercise a lot of constraints and do the right thing. That is it. Okay. After all, we are all looking at saving lives, saving properties. The vehicle you are using is very, very expensive. Lives cannot be replaceable, and all what we need to do as one people is to just use our common sense.
So this is a major highway you may consider because it connects to the Cape Coast Highway, and so you have 3 lanes on each side. I'm just trying to paint a picture for those who may not be familiar with the Awoshi area. And I must say that at certain times of the day, you have men from the Ghana Police Service stationed there to ensure that traffic is orderly, especially at dawn and in the night from about 10 p.m. onwards. That's where the problem begins, okay? And so, 1, the lights are not functioning. 2, there are no street lights. And coupled with other factors, maybe drivers speeding or not having enough lighting system to alert another driver that they are coming. So this is, it's a complex issue, okay? And you spoke about funding earlier. The big question for me is it a case of we don't have money, or it's a case of our priorities are somewhere else? From where you sit, what do you think?
Well, I think we are not prioritizing road safety in this country. It's really important. If you look at the National Road Safety Authority, for instance, working so hard, but they're handicapped. They need money to work. They need vehicles. They need people. I suggested to them in the last meeting that, look here, we have a lot of national service personnel. And then before we engage them in a special services that I'm looking at, called the Yellow Kiosk Project, where we'll have yellow kiosks, okay, made by maybe one of these plastic companies where we'll deliberately put in a national service person. Now, what is he going to do? He's going to be there, and as soon as you drive and then you see that yellow kiosk, nobody will tell you that, hey, the people are around, you know, it's just a deterrent. But where is the money to pay the boys? Where is the money to have this yellow kiosk? National Road Safety Authority, and I say it because I've spoken to most of them, they are handicapped. There's no money. There are no vehicles. And this is a very important authority in helping to reduce the road accidents as a carnage on the roads. But if government cannot give them what they need to have, then how do we save lives? Are we waiting to hear that very important personality has passed through a road crash before we wake up and say, give them what they need? No, government must open its eyes. My Nigerian friend will say, shine your eyes before we have deaths on the road. So it's just a major concern, and I know it's money. All these traffic light issues that we are talking about, right? I have spoken to some of the companies, and they have told me plainly that, Mr. Gabriel, if we have funding, we'll do it. And then also to do with issues on contractors who are excavating wrongly. And there are so many issues. And I think multimedia must take this opportunity to delve into it and deal with the issues before you have your relatives and my relatives passing through road crashes.
For some people, it's a daily affair of having to be on the roads. And I remember that road safety campaign song by Osei Kufuor, I think so, that's his name. He's now with Ghana Post. Used to be a musician, Obo, popularly known as Obo. And it had a line in it that, as a young girl, listening to that song got me thinking, and I personally believe that drivers may have felt that thing that I felt as a little girl. I wasn't so little, by the way. But so basically saying that mom said she was going and she would return, but she never came back. And it was such a thing in our faces that you always wanted to be extra careful. We've spoken about funding for the traffic lights. Let's digress a bit and talk about generally what we've been doing to keep it in the faces of drivers and road users about the importance of staying safe on the roads. I was at the 60th anniversary of the Akakpo International School last year, and two students, old students of that school, put up a quiz, and it had to do with writing a poem about road safety. And here's why they did that. They're siblings, because their dad died through the recklessness of a commercial vehicle driver. Somewhere in the western region, the driver just decided to overtake when he was not supposed to and just ran into the man and killed him. So these are real lives we are talking about here, real people, real families, and real life situations. How do we keep up? I know we always say money, but there's technology now. There's simpler ways of doing things. So how do we make sure that we keep it in the faces of people on how they must stay safe on the roads?
Well, that's a very big one, and my contribution simply is that we need to be a friend's keeper on the road. We just need to obey rules and regulations. There are a lot of factors and causes of these accidents that could be prevented, and it's just as simple for all drivers, all pedestrians, all passengers, and others to use their basic common sense to know that speed kills. And I mean, that's the main factor, that's the biggest issue of road crashes that we can never stop. Yesterday, for instance, I was lecturing a group of people from a big company, and I said, let's all drive at 50 kilometers now and see what happens. Right, so we took to the road from the Spanner Junction all the way to the High Street. We're driving at 50, and Bernice, guess what? The honking of other drivers alone was quite disturbing. Hey, why are you driving slow? What? But that is the speed limit. The speed limit of the country says 50 kilometers in town. When you're traveling 90 kilometers on the highway, and then 100 kilometers on the motorway. But all this are not working. It's the laws that are not working in the country. And if we are all driving at such speed, honestly speaking, I don't think we'll record even one accident, one incident. So it's a serious attitudinal change that we need in this country. When we have that attitudinal change where all of us will agree that, look, maybe of the radio stations, your systems, and so on could help to do this at least for one day. Let's see how it is. That, look, on the highway, everybody drives at 80. In Accra, everybody drives maximum speed at 50. Let's see what happens. And that is the loss that we have. So speed is the main factor. I mean, we always talk about the road, which we say the road is not good, and so, but then that is only 5% of accidents that we see. A lot of the accidents that we see are caused by human factors. 90% of it are caused by human factors. And out of this 90%, I'll say about 85% is caused by speed, okay? So we need to just hammer on this issue to save lives. That, look, let us reduce our speed, and then we need to work towards it. Honestly speaking, I've been talking about this, but we need that action, and then it shouldn't come from National Road Safety Authority. All of us are involved, all of us. After all, goods and services that we have in this country that is moving of goods and services. It's all done by transport. I mean, 99% of it is all done by road transport and not by air. It's only few that we transport by air. So we are all, Bernice, you drove this morning, I drove this morning, and I mean, I've been talking whilst I've been driving to myself. When I see faults, I said, well, I shall look at what he's doing. And I always say that for all of us being drivers, out of 10 drivers, Bernice, and I'll say it without fear or favor, that 7 of us are mad on the road. Out of 10 drivers around you, always 7 of them are mad. Madness doesn't talk about somebody removing his clothes and then walking by the street, but then we have problems. Depression is killing us. We are driving, we haven't, paid our landlords, we are owing people, and so on. You get angry, a little crossing here and there, and so on. This is all madness. And then if we cure ourselves, that will also reduce the carnage on the road, Bernice.
If you just joined us on the AM show, today we're talking about faulty traffic lights in the capital. And I know that for many of you in other parts of the country, you may have similar concerns. Mr. Gabra, not to justify the seeming rush that characterizes driving in the capital, but we all know what it is like in the morning is bars. I have lived in Kumasi for quite a large part of my life, and I don't see that rush as I see here in Accra. So there's something about Accra that makes people, that makes them always appear to be in a hurry. Don't you believe, though, that, and I know this is a leading question, but don't you believe, though, that if we develop other aspects of our commercial transport system, we could reduce that character that we see on our streets? For example, if we had trains working, if I hopped onto a train this morning, if you hopped onto a train this morning, there'll be fewer vehicles on the road, there'll be less traffic, there wouldn't be that urge for people to rush to work and beat the traffic, etc. Aren't we focusing too much, or aren't we expecting too much of human behavior when there are other ways of dealing with the problem, like developing the rail sector?
Well, thank you so much, Bernice. And then that brings me to the fact that I always say we have failed as a nation because all what you're saying could have been done a long time ago. Okay, I'll first of all pick on the issue of the BRT system, which is the bus rapid transit system that could take, that's what we call Ayalolo, that could have, solved a lot of issues on our transport system. Because Ayalolo doesn't work, we don't have segregated roads. And if even we have segregated roads, we brought in good buses, but then mismanagement has been the issue of this, expensive Marco Polo buses, where if you visit the Ayalolo Center right now, most of them are packed. But then, we have really failed because if you look at countries like India, Pakistan, and so on, a lot of people don't own vehicles, but then they use the public transit system, okay, where the bus is around and then you sit in. And that reminds me, when I was a little boy several years ago, I used to live with my parents at South Labadi Estate. I'll be going to Teshinungwa Estate. And there's an omnibus that's at the bus stop, bus 17A. I sit in it, 10-15 minutes we are at Teshinungwa, visit my uncle. And then wait for another 15-30 minutes, I'm back to South Labadi Estate. Today we can't see this because if you look at the major road itself, a lot of people have developed wrongly on such roads, on the highways, and we have seen it and we don't care. Who are we to blame? Those concerned? And definitely we need to talk about it. It's gone because we have sold the shoulders of the road for people to build put up kiosks people to put up, other shops and so on. Those that's the sort of the road was really meant for this. And if you look at Kwame Nkrumah's plans for Ghana, okay, we could have had the train system running from all the way from Tema to Accra, not using the motorway as such, but then using a place like from the Nungua barrier to Accra. But then just go and look at that place. It is not working. And then it is time. Well, it is not late if we are able to break areas at Tashinungwa and so on and put up a highway. Then we can as well put up the train system. And then the train system, what do we see? We only have the one-track system. I mean, it starts from maybe Accra, goes round at Teshi, Tema, and so on. But we don't have any coming from Tema at that particular time. And it's also so sad. I live around the Spintex area. I pass through Teshinungwa. What's that place called? Is it Asoko now? So, I mean, there's a train station there, and it is really horrible. Very, very horrible. I ask myself, so can't the train operators notice that they can put up a little train stop there where vendors will be, allocated places to sell maybe porridge in the morning and so on, where workers could eat and continue with their journey to the office, where a car park will also be given that you park your vehicle here. And then we are seeing all these things outside, and we come back and we are still in this field. What is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? You pick a country like Netherlands. The Netherlands was taken by the sea some years ago, but then go there and it's just so beautiful. They are using the sea, they are using the train system, they are using the tram system, they are using vehicles, bus system, and then the airports are, the Schiphol airport is above all. Why can't we do similar things than to talk about NDC, MPP politics that is not taking us anywhere? We are retrogressing in this country, Bernice.
Like others have suggested, probably focusing on a national plan may be the solution to our problems. Do you agree in considering an agenda for our transport sector plus others? Should we, because you just mentioned NDC and MPP, should we, like some have suggested in the agri sector, for example, taking it from politicians and giving it to the National Planning Commission, should we be looking at something like that as well for our road transport system?
That would have been a perfect one, but will it work? Because if Party A comes, he's going to appoint his people to manage the National Planning Committee, and then as soon as they are off, and another Party A comes, they'll come over and change things. I mean, who will be in control of such situations? So we are stuck, and then we are growing. And then very soon, some of us will be called by our makers. It's our children that we are looking at to build Ghana to what we say comparable and state of with state-of-the-art equipment to run with other countries. So we have failed. That is it. We have failed.
Mr. Garba, I would ask you to hold on for a while I bring in Engineer Adonting, who is the Acting Director General of the National Road Safety Authority. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Before I get into the details of our conversation today, just a quick wrap of your exercise during the Easter period. I spoke to you on Friday. You were out on the streets, on the highways, ensuring that people were being responsible and not being reckless. Were there any arrests made? Can you just give us a wrap of that entire exercise?
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to you and all our friends who are with you, to all Ghanaians, and then to my good friend, Mr. Garba, for all his support, encouragement. I think that before the Easter, we had a lot of engagement with the media. We demonstrated to the general public that the situation during Easter is not going to be the same like before, when we always come back reporting on the number of deaths and injuries and so on. And we gave our word to the people of Ghana. And indeed, we have come to report back to the people to say that we have come with good news. The good news is that the situation was very calm. We did not record any disastrous situations where we could talk of 10 people die here, 20 people die here, the old story again. No. We have come of age. National Road Safety Authority, we know the problems, we know where they are and how we can solve them. I think we are beginning to now have that strong commitment and dispensation with support from everybody, and I think we are getting the positive results. As I say to you, we do not have much to say in terms of the deaths and injuries and so on, but we have much to say in terms of what we actually deployed on the ground. And I want to thank every media person who dedicated space and time for us to speak to the people of Ghana, especially those motorists, drivers, and everybody who on the day of Easter and before then, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, had to drive and transit on the road to their various destinations, especially those who went to Kwawu and then Koko and Barong. We were on the road. I was particularly there personally with the IGP also himself, with our directors and our team. Everybody showing commitment to demonstrate that there was nobody who was going to misbehave like before. We stopped all those who were to drink and drive. There was no drink driving. We also stopped those who were going to do wrongful overtaking, and also those who were going to speed beyond speed limits. We were there with our gadgets. We stopped vehicles. We spoke to them. We gave them confidence and trust and encouragement. We had to, do a few arrests anyway, about 25 of them on the first day, and we are taking them through the rigors of the laws accordingly. And the rest of them responded very positively, and they changed their attitude to the level that we expect. And trust me, I think I give commendation to all motorists, the transit operators in particular, the GPRTUs, the Protoirs, and all of them who transported people across the length and breadth of this country. We didn't hear the old story again. But that doesn't mean that we have finished it all. We still have more work to do. But there were a few of them that we came across. But I think our engagement with them, they realized the need that they have a role to play in all these road safety management things we're talking about. I want to say that our plan actually was executed perfectly, with the IGP at the front line, myself and my directors, and all the team from National Road Safety Authority and the Ghana Police Service, with all our stakeholders from wherever. I think we want to say that good job done. I equal to everybody, and I must say the media. I do not know how I should commend you and thank you. People like Gaba, who also drove straight to my office, sat with me and gave me a few tidbits and ideas, which we included. And I think now we are proud to say that Easter was calm. Everybody is fine, and we have all gone and come back safely. And I think that is the news we are reporting to the general public now.
Engineer, these people you say are facing the law. What exactly are the offenses?
Well, some of them were speeding. Of course, we got a few of them who were so excited and overexcited for Easter. And you know, when it comes to Kwawu, and the kind of lyrics around Kwawu, people went overboard. There were others, a couple of them who had taken in alcohol, and so driving under the influence of alcohol. These were young men who, in their youthful exuberance, have very, very good cars. Some of them wanted to test the capacity of their vehicles, so running far beyond the speed limit. There were others who also tried to misbehave in a way. You stop them and they wouldn't stop, and they want to perhaps show that they have the muscles. But you cannot do that when the police present has said that we are prepared to counter all these kind of measures. So speeding, actually, a couple of them. There were some who had taken in some alcohol and driving at the same time. There were others who were showing, some levels of indiscipline, various levels of indiscipline, disrespect to authority, to the police. We stop you and you don't want to stop, and all those things.
Are they being arraigned, and which courts will preside over their cases?
Yes. In fact, I think we were very committed to the fact that much as we wanted to do more of education, more of engagement, more of sensitization, but we warned that should there be anybody who will show indiscipline, irresponsibility for that matter, and wanting to do something against all the plans that we have, that's when we will pick you up. And when we pick you up, we will take you through the law.
Just to be clear, sorry I'm interjected. I just want to get some clarity here. Of all the people who were caught for these offenses, they were just cautioned. And so from that exercise you carried out on Good Friday, no one is being arraigned.
But you see, there are certain personalities being involved that I wouldn't want to mention names. There were some celebrities, who will definitely arrange the report for.
Okay.
I'm not mentioning names.
So we'll get details of that, but let's move to the conversation proper. This was just an update I wanted on your exercise on Friday.
That's right.
Faulty traffic lights. I remember right here on the show, there was a day I engaged you at the Lansah Hotel. I don't know if you remember, there was a sensitization program you were having there together with some insurance companies. And I spoke to you about the Awoshi traffic lights. This was sometime last year, about the traffic light that wasn't working. Fast forward 2023, we're in April, it's still not working. I have personally witnessed about 3 accidents, one involving about 4 different vehicles from all angles, crashing at the center. How long do we want to risk this? These are people's lives. And this happened at a time the police officers were not stationed to direct traffic orderly. It was at dawn, at that time of the day where the lights aren't working, there really isn't anybody. There are some young boys who try to step in to do that, but I really can't tell what happened on that day. But for how long, Engineer Adonte? Mr. Gabra has pointed to lack of funding. And the question is, why aren't we prioritizing? This is a major intersection. Shiashi, for example, is a major road in the capital. What will it take for us to say, let's put some money aside and fix whatever the problem is?
I think that, Among Frank, I am perhaps as worried as you are, or perhaps even more than, for the position I hold and managing situations which should prevent human deaths of human beings and damage to properties and injuries and so on. And there's one particular problem, and I answer questions on this particular problem every day regarding traffic lights. Indeed, without the traffic lights, we all know the repercussions, the negative issues as far as road traffic crashes are concerned. Traffic lights regulate movement at intersections. We all know. Now, if you get to an intersection, the major ones, Kaukudi, Dawoshi, and the ones 37 and the rest, and they are not functioning, then we should expect anything to happen. Well, once in a while we bring the police to come and manage the situation. But for how long can this continue? It means that I am worried as an institution that has the mandate to regulate some of these things. But unfortunately, I don't. Our institution does not install traffic lights. It is the responsibility of the Department of Urban Roads to do this. Now, what we do is collaboration and coordination. We bring to their attention the fact that there are 40 traffic lights at certain intersections. Some of them, they move very quickly to get them fixed. Others, they are unable to. And when we confront the issue, it all comes back to the same thing Mr. Gaba is talking about. Funding, we don't have the money, contractors have been, have not been paid, and so they do not want to go. And sometimes it's also about theft and vandalism. Some people go steal the cables, others also steal the whole control board, and all that for various reasons that we cannot understand. But I think that all in all, as you said, we can prioritize traffic lights. We can do it. We have been pushing the agenda for some time now, trying to pursue our colleagues from the engineering fraternity, especially the Department of Urban Roads, to do this. But unfortunately, when you get to a point and it's about funding, my sister, what else can you do? We just have to wait and see. But we try as much as possible to collaborate with the police, for the police to, release a couple of them to stand at these intersections. Some of these national service guys that we have trained them also coming to do some traffic management here and there. But it is something we must all advocate. We must advocate through your medium and others so that we see the need for us to at least come and get some of these critical intersections to be working. It needs to work because failure of which, especially at night, anything at all could happen. And I don't think we should sit down until it happens and then we come and write the statistics and the stories around it. I want to also share the pain with you that we use your platform to keep talking, to keep advocating for traffic lights to be prioritized so that we should be forthcoming as an agency responsible for it. Look for the money, if it is about money, to get it fixed because it is important. And I'm as worried as you are. I think that we've gotten to a situation where we all need to put our hands together and support each other in this area. Otherwise, all these statistics that we have worked so hard in trying to protect, sustain, and maintain. Because as I speak to you, in 2 months we have reduced fatalities by 31%. In the first quarter, if you add even March, we have done a reduction of 25% of fatalities. We need to sustain and maintain it. So we shouldn't let things come to mar and muddy the waters. Whatever we need to do as responsible agencies, we must be forthcoming. We must try and do it. I know there are others that we have done, but we need to do more. So I also want to take advantage of this opportunity to speak and advocate to our agencies. Whoever has a responsibility to fix one thing or the other within the road space, please let us do that. For the National Road Safety Authority, we are doing our bit by sensitizing, by talking to people, trying to win their mindsets to be able to change their attitudes within the road space. Now, if you are doing that and a certain road facility is not functioning, what is the justification going to ask somebody to do one thing or the other? I think it's a collective thing we all need to do. Road safety is a shared and collective responsibility. So, much as I want to sensitize individuals to change their attitudes in road use, I also want to speak to institutions. The street lights, we need a street light. We need a traffic light. We need a pothole to be patched. We need a line marking. We need a crash barrier. All these things contribute to crashes. And I think if we are able to fix them and fix them well, that is the only way we can see ourselves moving forward as a nation. I think that is what I can say around it.
And on the issue of human activities affecting traffic lights, I have received some photos just sent to me by Mr. Gabra while the conversation was ongoing, indicating what we as people have also done in contributing to the problem and how we must desist from such activities. And if you witness anybody hitting a traffic light and driving off, just take their car number. Now, because of technology, there's a way of tracking the person down and ensuring that they pay for the damage caused. If you see anybody, performing some funny activities around the control system of traffic lights or any installation of that sort, you should be concerned as a citizen because this all affects us and you can never tell who will fall victim. That's the thing about road crashes. You can never tell. And I've always said that we must all be concerned. It's just like the fight against illegal mining. You may sit and say, oh, it doesn't concern me. I live in an area that has functioning streetlights. You never know what will bring you to Awoshi. You never know what will take you to Shiashi. Or even that person you love could be affected. So let's all get on board and push for these things to be done. Well, just in wrapping up my conversation, Mr. Gabra, any concluding thoughts? Anything you'd like to say in wrapping up?
Thank you so much. I think Engineer David has said it all. It's a concern for all of us to live as one people and support each other by just doing the right thing on the road. That is it. That is road safety. Road safety is not only for the National Road Safety Authority, DVLA, the Ministry of Transport, But then, as one people, we all need to support each other. So we kept the road crashes. So we'll have maybe for the whole year a very minimum number of deaths through their own negligence. Even through that, we need to support each other. If you are that type who speed a lot, where you are recalcitrant, all what we want to tell you is that as a Nigerian man will say, your time will come, which means that if you don't take care, you lose your life. And then your family will be wondering on what to do next. We need everybody alive as one people, not only Ghanaian, being a Ghanaian, but then everybody. Well, we should be a brother's keeper on the road. Let's stop speeding. That's the major issue. Those talking on the phone who are driving at that same time must desist from it. Stop and talk to whoever you want to talk to, and then you can go on with your driving. Those of you also driving on the shoulders, please, it is against the regulations. Those who are running the red lights, please stop it. Stop it. So it's a human attitude that we need to change, right? If we all change our lives, I guess we'll have minimum crashes on the road. Let us be our brother's keeper. That is what I would say.
Right. And as you were speaking and wrapping up, we just started showing the photos of some damaged traffic lights, some of them stolen, some of them affected by fire because people decided to burn close to a traffic light. What is wrong with us? And some also, indicating theft, some hit and run issue. So that one you're seeing there in the truck has been affected because somebody hit it. There you see the control system of the traffic light tampered with. Some people just go in and for whatever reasons steal very important parts of these control systems. So please, let's all be on the lookout. This is about all of us. Engineer, your final words.
I highly admire and appreciate your advocacy in the past few minutes. What you have delivered appears to be exactly what we need to do. Thank you also very much, Mr. Gaba, for clearly reminding everybody that Road City is about us all. All of us have some role to play, so we should play our roles very well. We as far as the general attitudinal change, we are working on it. I believe, let me commend IGP once again. Anywhere I go, I commend him because he's doing a good job to support us in terms of enforcement. But we as a people to also continue to do our bit. The advocacy you have started will support you so that we all call for intersections to be fixed. Traffic lights at intersections to be fixed. And all others. We are making positive gains. We are reducing the deaths and the injuries. We should keep on. We can do it as a country. All the small bits we are all doing are contributing immensely. And we recognize that. I think we should continue. We will do our best. And I think that Ghanaians will listen to us and they will also do their portion. And let me commend you and thank you so much for this opportunity. But it is not ended yet. Let's keep on talking. Road safety is about talking. It's about advocacy. It's about sensitization. Letting people know, understand, and appreciate what they must do, which we are doing now. And I think in the next couple of months to the end of the year, we will do further reductions to see that now we have achieved a lot for road safety in Ghana. I want to thank you and have a good day.
Good day to you, sir. Thank you very much. You heard Engineer Donting. He is the Acting Director General of the Ghana Road Safety Authority. You also heard Cecil Gabra, who's CEO of Top Tech Logistics, and he has also been sharing his thoughts with us on road safety. When we come back, we will be finding out from you what your concerns also are about faulty traffic lights and what you've seen, especially with human activities and how we contribute to that. We'll be back to do that in a moment. Do stay. Welcome back, and Benjamin Akakpo is back. Hello, Benjamin.
Hi, Bernice.
Did you encounter any faulty traffic lights on your way to work?
Oh, there are so many of them. There's actually one right down the stretch.
Sadly.
I was mentioning it this morning. There's one right down alley, and anytime I get there, you would see cars struggling. Those cars coming from Newtown heading to Circle, You know the Trotskys, how they usually pile through. They just want to go.
And also because you're on the slope. You know, sometimes...
Yes, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
So they're just coming and they're zooming through.
Yeah.
Then those here want to, and especially the motorbikes as well, coming from the other end. So it's complicated. Every time I get there, I have to be really cautious because at the same time, there are also people crossing. So it's not just the vehicular movement you have to pay attention to. Individuals crossing as well. You could actually
drawn my mind to
something. So it's
and how our traffic lights. We used to see that where you have a traffic light and then one for the pedestrian crossing, which alerts them. But for many of
you mean the button push?
No, well, there was the button push type, and there was the one that incorporated where you see like a stick man walking. You know, which
some of them still have.
Some of them still have it, but many also do not have. So you have people trying to make sense of the whole traffic situation. And so if you're crossing from one point to the other, when this one stops, you know it's your turn to cross. Well, let's hear from you. I mean, it's a big challenge, but I don't know if you can roll the pictures again. So you see Benjamin, I mean, we must call a spade a spade. Where the authorities are slacking, we hit at them. But when we are also contributing to the problem, we should say it. I mean, how do you burn rubbish under a traffic light? How do you do that?
Education. I think there are some things we may take for granted, but trust me, some of the weirdest things people do, it's simply because they don't know.
And sometimes it's simply because they don't care. Look at how some people cook in the markets when they know that it could lead to a fire, one after the other, after the other, after the other. Well, Ato is joining us from Cape Coast. Hello, Ato. Let's hear you. Good morning.
Morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello, Ato. Atendene.
Yaminag Mo.
Okay, let's hear you.
Air.
You're on air.
Oh, she's Ghana. Ghana traffic lights is Ghana traffic lights is to fix. What is happening in the country? What is happening in Ghana here? What is happening? Common traffic lights, we can't fix it in this country.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. So Ato is clearly shocked that
Ato's fancy. You know when you're passionate about something, your language comes out in a different way.
You know, he just had to switch.
Yeah.
He said, "What is happening?" You know, and also God have mercy on us, basically.
But the point he makes, though, that can't we fix common traffic lights in the country? It's not. Sometimes it goes beyond that. It's not just about noting, because in that package we played, some would say for 7 months. Sometimes for a year.
Oh, sometimes
a traffic light has been faulty.
Yes.
I mean, if you're using the Okponglo route, sometimes you would encounter a few things. It's on and off. But if you're coming from the UPSA towards at Goyle, that traffic light. Oftentimes during the day, you would see the police visibility teams there. But if you apply that route at dawn or at any other time, it's not working. So what do you do? And it's an intersection, major one.
We have another caller from Cape Coast. Hello, good morning to you.
Good morning, madam.
Let's hear you, please.
All right. Sometimes, you see, it saddens my heart. I am in Cape Coast. When you get to Freight Junction, solar systems have been installed to the traffic system so that when there is even light out, the solar system will have to power the traffic.
Right.
You get there and then there is no, the traffic is not working. The police will be standing at one side, those coming from Abra to town. And those from town to Abra will have to manage their way to be able to drive and then they cross the main road. Why? If the system is off, the police will have to be at both sides. We wait till somebody dies before then they will try to come and give us excuses. This solar system was installed just because they want when the main electricity thing goes
You're right.
They will to be used.
You're right. But once again, you know, we've been shown, and the pictures are still available. If you were watching the show from the time we started the conversation, you see that people are tampering with the control system. So even if the solar panels are there, the question is, are we storing the energy? Has anybody tampered with it? Because just seeing the solar panels up there doesn't necessarily mean any real power is being generated.
If some people were even trying to steal the solar panels themselves.
There was one picture that showed that, you can see that people have tried to pull it off. So thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And I hope that the police in the central region is listening to him, especially about his concerns about, did you say the Pedu traffic lights? Well, we've lost him there, but there are some concerns about, so there you see the solar panels, Benjamin, tampered with.
So like you said, I mean, for those who would attempt stuff like this, I think that's the exception. You know, that's the exception. If you look around, mostly it's either someone has hit the traffic light and it's not been fixed, or it's out of order and it's not been fixed. And I think I said at the start of the show, I don't know whether it's urban roads, whether it's the roads ministry, transport, whether it's the MTTD, but something ought to be done with some urgency. Usually when we have such conversations, then you would see some institutions running helter-skelter. And that's why we're having this conversation today. Hopefully some action will be brought to bear.
Well, that'll be it for today's edition of the AM show. We are so grateful that you wake up every morning thinking about us, hoping to join us and share your thoughts as well. God willing, we are back again tomorrow, but now we're going to cook something great for you, thinking about what matters to you. So we'll be out of the studios. Up next is News Desk. Do stay with us. This is JoyNews, your most credible news source. I'm Bernice Lansah, and he is Benjamin Akakpo.
Have a good morning.